see that quite.
The executive session.
Yeah, executive
Oh, now you can see a big wet mark.
They're gonna make it.
I told Summer, you didn't say anything about my tie. It's the only clean one I could find this morning. It's not clean.
Yeah, right.
We're live, Chris.
I'll get the Kleenex ready.
1 minute. Maybe we can get somebody on a hot mic saying something.
Well, these are definitely hot.
Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on October 2nd, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do I have a report, Commissioner Boice?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Line of duty deaths for police officers. Very sad to report we're up 5 from our weekly, from our meeting in Port Orford last week. On the fire, firefighter deaths, we're up 4. Happy to report military deaths, Mr. Chair, remain at 31. So up to 94 now for police officers and 38 for firefighters. Moment of silence, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board.
All right. Do I have any amendments to the agenda? Commissioner Boice?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to request when we break, no specific time needed. For about 20 minutes, I need to run down to local U.S. Forest Service and submit a letter supporting the Regional Advisory Committee grant for $15,000. Oops, sorry about that. For, again, our Curry Forestry Department initial plans. Coosa and Josephine County each have a forestry department, so I think I can run down there, present my letter, and get back in time, hopefully within 20 minutes, should you approve.
Okay, so instead of from 10 to 10:10, we'll take a break from 10 to 10:20.
That
All
should
right.
work, thank you. That's all I have for agenda changes.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I submitted yesterday and added reason for executive session, which is the labor negotiations deliberations. So I think that's
Okay.
190-660 sub 2 sub D.
Did you have the possible lawsuit also?
That's already on there under the topics. Thank you for that. We have litigation and confidential matters already listed. We'll just include that under that topic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 6602H.
Yep.
Anything further?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice.
Yes.
Chair Paasch.
All right.
Motion carried unanimously. We're on to the meeting.
All righty. Go, JJ.
All you need is pom-poms, JJ.
I love it. So next we're going to do public comments. Mr. Clausen?
I'd like to start out by...
Okay. Thank you, sir.
This concerns the transient lodging tax, advertising money. The project is one that was started 22 years ago by a good friend of Commissioner Boice, a man named Walt Schroeder. And it's about the trail that has been developed along the south bank of the Rogue River. The map's inside, but I'd call your attention to the back side. Over the last 22 years, Walt Schroeder and his incredible group of followers located 108 different species of birds within the 2 miles between the mill site, the old mill, or excuse me, not the old mill site, the way station, and Huntley Park.
Time out.
Okay. Does he know?
Greg?
1 second, Mr. Clausen.
Let me check.
Maybe we should just go check.
Apparently we're not live.
Which is not a prerequisite to the meetings, but we would like to be live. Bear with us 1 moment, please.
We're waiting.
Hang on.
Okay, we're not live, but it is being taped, so it'll run later on YouTube.
Okay, and this is running properly, correct? 'Cause we have to make sure we have the minutes. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Clausen, if you would continue.
Okay. Again, on the back side, we list 108 birds, species of birds that have been located between the way station and Huntley Park. That's about 2 miles. There is no place else in the United States outside of an aviary where you're going to find that many birds that close. And that's what my presentation is about today. It's titled Gold Beach is for the Birds. Obviously, our #1 tourist attraction is fishing. And but there's another specific tourist group we need to target with advertising money. I'm talking about bird watchers. If you drive up and down Jerry Splat Road, you see people with binoculars and cameras and out-of-state license plates on their cars, lots of them. Here's what's been happening for 20 or so years. Back then, a few folks noticed a whole lot of different birds seemed to occupy the woods along the south side of the Rogue River. One of those folks was and still is an avid birder. Today, there is a volunteer-maintained walking trail along that route, and we're talking about volunteer work 365 days a year, someone's out there. No one gets paid, there's never been a grant, we never asked for one. Everything is done by private donation. There are incredible points along the trail that you should see. But my point is this, people drive hundreds or thousands of miles to go see a single species of bird that they've never seen before. It's like every birder has a bucket list that they want to make as long as possible. Spotting as many kinds as possible. That's what makes Gold Beach a real birding destination. You're not talking about one kind of bird, you're talking about 108 kinds. Here's my idea. Whoever it is in town that has access to that tourist advertising tax cash should be taking out ads in some of the national birding magazines. I have the list of birds and a map of the trail. And I've turned everything over to you guys, and let's see if we can do something with it.
Maybe if you would get Director Schmelzer a copy of that advertisement for the magazine and the list.
Oh,
the
me and this?
Yeah,
My speech?
that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Clausen?
This is from my gardening newsletter.
Okay.
That comes out after a couple weeks. And when you left for Josephine County, we added economic development.
Oh, nice.
That's what this is. Now we're glad to have you back.
Very nice, thank you.
Well said. Mr. Chair, Gene, you don't have to come back to the microphone, but I appreciate your reference to Walt Schroeder. I got to spend a couple hours with him about 10 days ago. I'm going to be bringing before the board next February an honorary deal for the House and the Senate jointly to honor him for his service to Curry County. As you know, he was state representative for 5 terms, 10 years. Plus, he was extension agent here for almost 30 years. Raised his family. He and Sally were just the most incredible people. So again, thank you for that reference. One last note: I've never heard of a nuthatch. Are you sure about that?
Oh, we have those back home.
Huh?
We have those back home.
In Curry County? A
Number one,
nuthatch.
verified.
I trust you.
One of the workers, she has now, in watercolor, painted almost, in the last 5 years, painted almost half those birds.
Okay.
They've appeared in won prizes at the county fair. She's 72 years old. She goes out there, cruise on the trail every day. She hopes to be alive long enough to paint all 108 birds.
Thank you for that
Thank you,
extra
sir.
time, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Next, we have David Barnes. Morning, sir.
Morning. Did have a comment, gonna pass on that one. Just want to ask, you know, in consideration of the 14, 15 members of the public here, I'd ask you to rescind your earlier decision about break time. You know, if one person is out doing something else, it shouldn't inconvenience the 14 members of the public who are sitting here. And Commissioner Boice can pick back up again when he gets back. You know, but it is a big inconvenience to all of us to have an extra 20 minutes of break time.
Well, it'd only be an extra 10 minutes of break.
Even an extra 10, sir, it's, you know, if
Okay.
he wants to go out and do something else, let him do it, but don't inconvenience us. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boice?
the Regional Advisory Committee didn't know that our meeting was today, but there's 12 volunteers that serve on that committee from various spots of the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest that are here today. I looked diligently to find somebody that could go in my place and present that letter. It is an opportunity, a good opportunity for $15,000. I'm sorry if the public is in any way inconvenienced. I hope down the road, though, I'm able to give them a positive report on this grant award should we prevail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Quick question, could Summer present that?
I'll ask her. She
Okay.
has got a tremendous schedule
Okay.
today, and obviously everybody else is here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next, we have Christine Neal. Morning.
Good morning. So I'm here on behalf of the union negotiations for SEIU. I do have a letter for the commissioners. I will give a copy to JJ. But basically, we are just hoping that in the midst of mediation, we would encourage the commissioners to discuss the budget and come prepared with an offer that is respectful to the hardworking county employees. We hope for the whole county's sake that they are willing to meet us halfway.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to number 5 now, presentations. Coast Community Health. Ms. Maxson? She's not here. No, she's not.
I think she has to come from band.
Let's hold off on that one. Next, we're going to do B, recognition, 5-year service award, Christine Neal, Wendy Lang, Juvenile Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I am very pleased today to be able to present Christine Neal with 5 years and 2 months of service. I need to make that very clear. It's been an ongoing joke in our office. August was her 5-year anniversary, and things have been pretty hectic in the juvenile department with schedules, but today we were finally able to make it here. I would like to share a little bit about Christine because it's a pretty amazing story that we jump into. She originally started at the district attorney's office as a victim's advocate. And a year ago, she applied to be a probation officer in the juvenile department, and she is absolutely an amazing fit in our department. I apologize to the district attorney's office because she's an amazing employee, but I anticipate I will be before you giving her several 10, 20-year awards because she's amazing. The work she does with children, youth, all the kids that come before us. The world of juvenile probation is pretty unique because it's a 24/7 job. We don't have swing shifts, we don't have knock shifts. It's us. We carry cell phones around with us. We don't have ours right now, but the girls at the office are monitoring them. It doesn't stop when you go to the grocery store. Somebody's always asking you questions. 2 o'clock in the morning, when a kid needs services, you get the text and you respond. So the uniqueness in finding somebody willing to give that is something all in its own, but Christine does that without hesitation. This summer, she even took on projects. We have some youth we work with that are victims of abuse, and they did therapy art groups up at our office every week, above and beyond. Took the girls on the front lawn. You saw her pushing a lawnmower. You saw her planting plants on our front lawn. There's nothing that she won't do. She works her 40-hour week, and then she goes to the school and volunteers and coaches volleyball. This weekend, she drove to Coos Bay to coach volleyball, and then she left the tournament early because her boss had this crazy notion that our staff would dress up as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the hero celebration at the park on Saturday. And she wasn't late. She showed up on time. She was her Saturday. It wasn't a work Saturday. It wasn't required. And she showed up, and she absolutely gave her time. She arrives early. Juvenile department, we're the first ones in that building in the morning, and we're the last ones to leave at night. No questions asked. So an amazing employee. But here's the really cool part about Christine's story is this is a family tradition. She is what an county employee is, somebody who will make it a career. In 1951, B.I. Mather started working for Curry County. He was a treasurer, and then he was the county clerk, and that is her grandfather. And then in 1972, her father, John, started working at the road department where he was an engineer for 32 years, and he retired. They're not with us today, but they're proud of her. Her mother and her husband are here today to see her get this. She also has a brother who works for Curry County. So I told her pressure's up. She needs to be looking at 35 years with the county. This, Christine shows us that Curry County is an amazing place to work. It's an amazing place to live here and to raise a family and to settle in, to have a job you love. Christine's passionate about what she does. She is the ultimate Curry County employee. We appreciate her. And so I would like to give her her presentation and her pin for 5 years. And we thank you very much. A picture of her mom.
Christine, this is a great example when our youth stays in Curry County. So that is just a wonderful thing to see. And I've got to kind of remind everyone that you come from great stock on both the Detmer and the Mather families. Thank you for your service.
All right, next we are going to do C, the restoration of front lawn, Curry County Courthouse. Ms. Lang?
So I just wanted to run this by the board. Previously I just had said the juvenile department has taken on the maintenance of the front lawn through our community service work. There's no funds dedicated for that. We're just trying to be very creative on what we can do. As you drive through town, you'll see Gold Beach Main Street has placed benches and specialty shrubs and trees along 101, and we're really trying to run with that theme. You'll find benches that are nice quality benches. In trying to be resourceful, we had a concept that we would place 4 benches in front of the courthouse, and how we would be able to afford that would be by sponsorship. And I think I gave a sample of a letter that we would like to go out to those employees, past, present, Curry County, inviting them to maybe do a sponsorship of that bench. Whereas if you put your name or your family's name on that bench, it would pay for the bench. And before we roll into that project, we're just asking for support or approval from the board to be able to do that.
I have no objection at all to doing that.
I don't either.
Okay.
Commissioner?
Very good. Thank you,
All right.
Chair Paasch.
Sounds unanimous.
We'll move forward with that. Thank you.
Don't move.
Thanks,
I was
Director
going to
Lang.
say, I believe
You're
I'm
still
D,
up.
so.
I just have one question. How much per bench?
It's $1,200.
Okay.
Yep. The benches themselves are like $3,000, and the fish are $200 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah, they will last forever. They're there permanently, so.
Good.
Yep.
Next, we have quarterly report. Wendy Lang.
Just a brief update from last time I was here. We did several changes last fiscal year, putting a lot of things in place, and everything is going extremely well at the juvenile department. When school starts, of course, referrals increase, so we've seen a number of increased referrals since September. That is what we expect. That's what we've seen in the past. As I explained the duties of Christine, I do want to share the employees we have are amazing. My probation officers are what make us work 24/7. I have 3 probation officers. Brandt, who works in Brookings, he also coaches football when he's done working a 40-hour week. Christine coaches volleyball when she's done. I have Mr. Nick Teresh, and he coaches basketball when he's done. They give back to the community outside of the 40 hours they work. Again, we carry phones with us all the time. They have to put in on-call shifts. Miss Amy Parker joined our staff several months ago, and she's our administrative assistant, and she's doing some amazing things. It's our goal to be able to go out and seek some funds. We're a department, I believe, that can bring in outside funds and grants for our community service work and our prevention efforts, which then I think will help all of us. It would be less we would have to take out of the general fund to be able to operate, and I think she's the lady who can help me get there and help me go out and look at funds. The district attorney's office was lucky enough to obtain a grant for a juvenile victims advocate, and so Miss Alicia Crone, her husband works as a deputy here. She's been placed in our office under the DA's umbrella, but we now have an advocate just for victims of juvenile crimes, and she's doing amazing things. She helped the therapy group with Christine. When we're done here, her and I are headed to Brookings to meet with a victim, so something that we've needed for a long time, and she's an amazing employee. And then we brought on Mr. Summers for community service work, and since I was here last time, we've had Oregon State Parks come to the table, and they're preparing a contract for us right now to be able to get back into the state parks and have our kids do some work there, which will bring money into our program. The days of kids walking down the road in orange vests and picking up garbage, maybe somewhat, I don't know, parading them around, we're hoping are over. We're really looking at community service projects, giving them skills, teaching them how to clear trail. The state parks wants us to let them clear trail, and then they get to spend the night, they get to do some work, they get to learn how to maintain, they get to learn to build bridges, they get to apply for summer work. So that's something that's new and exciting coming out. And again, we hope that the lawn's going to be completed hopefully by about the end of maybe January or February. Plants came in yesterday. Lori Van Zant picked up some plants for us. You're going to see that coming in and seeing some changes there. We have a couple House bills, Senate bills that we're going to prepare for come January, and we're getting in line with those. A couple things changing in the juvenile world, and we're focusing on prevention. Unfortunately, we're seeing a younger group come before the juvenile department, 9 to 12-year-olds, and we just don't have resources for 9 to 12-year-olds. Drug and alcohol treatment isn't designed for 9-year-olds. So we're taking some big prevention efforts. We're making some changes, and we're bringing stuff in-house. Probation officers all know how important it is, and they've all agreed. You know, we're trained to work with 14, 15, 16-year-olds, so now we're having to learn to work with some 9, 10, and 11-year-olds. So everybody's adjusting and doing training. Matter of fact, tomorrow we're hosting a training downstairs, Interstate Compact. Douglas, Josephine, Coos are coming down to join us to do a training. We've had a small influx of Crescent City youth traveling to Oregon to take things from stores that don't belong to them, thinking they can get away with it. Large number of cases. So we are now working diligently to let them know that it's not accepted. There are consequences, but it's a lot of paperwork to do. Even though we're a short distance apart, it's a different state, so it takes a lot of work to be able to go through those cases and set up appropriate means and to get them back to their own state. So our new concept is it's not really at-risk youth we're working out, but when you come through our doors, there's hope. There's hope for every kid. I'd hope we don't look at them as all at risk anymore, but there's hope for education, there's hope for change, there's hope for good family life, there's hope for an excellent future. Kids can be rehabilitated. Yes?
Would you speak a little bit about that hope of what I saw yesterday?
Yeah.
Because there's a kid that looked like he was
All smiles?
couldn't be helped.
Yeah.
And yesterday he was all smiles, yes.
We had a big success yesterday. The courts allowed us to actually host a graduation in juvenile court yesterday. We had a young man work extremely hard but didn't get his credits at the time of graduation in June, but he obtained those over the summer, and so Judge Beeman allowed us to, we invited the school, he was gowned up, we played the music, he came into the courtroom, Commissioner Paasch was there to watch it, and he actually received his diploma. We had a reception afterwards. My amazing staff made cupcakes and they all volunteered to bring stuff in. They decorated. He has a graduation photo and he has a diploma. So, yep.
And from what I understand,
celebrate
this young
success.
man a year ago was lost, completely
Absolutely.
lost.
He's been on his own for quite some time at age 17, trying to make it work. And he wasn't a criminal. He was just a kid that needed some direction. And
Commissioner
so-
Gold?
Are any of your kids involved in the CTE programs at the high school for trades and that sort of thing?
Several of ours are.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
yep.
Are they succeeding there, or?
Yeah, and actually, I'm trying, time's getting away from me, but I believe it was last Thursday, there was a large trade show expo
Right.
over at Seven Feathers, and we did take youth over to that.
Good, all right.
I was there as well.
Yeah, it's like I said, we don't have a lot of resources here, but we're very creative. The staff is very creative, and I think good things are happening.
Just so you know on that, so you know, we are going to be in the next few weeks, we're actually going to present to the board later today about bringing a lot of those vendors at that trade show here for a similar trade show and invite all of the youth in Curry County to that, so.
That would be amazing, because we've got some kids who couldn't make it,
Yeah.
and they've already, they want to go, so.
We've pretty much got we're coming from, I'm going to say of the 70 we spoke to, probably 60 of them are coming.
That would be fantastic.
So, yeah.
We would love to be part of that. We've got,
Great. Well, good job. And,
Thank you.
And appreciate the good
Can I
report.
just say something real quick?
Sure.
Wendy, I think on behalf of the entire board's office, we're really proud of the work that you're doing, and we're
Thank you.
grateful you're here.
thank you. We enjoy it, and I love this. I love Curry County also. So it's a family tradition for me also, and I love living here and I love working here.
You can give a little information on that, by the way. Your family history.
Here's-
Your
Thanks,
parents.
Wendy, great job.
Thank you.
I'll
Next
just-
up.
I'll just say her father, Bill Wallace, was a district attorney here. How many years?
26.
26, and had tremendous respect around the state. I don't know if that's a record for a district attorney, but very likely is.
Searching for a beach
Thank you.
vacation? Find it at Verbo. They search millions of homes to find your perfect beach house where you all...
Hi guys.
Oh, wrong one. Wait.
What you're about to see
Skip it.
is the culmination thus far.
Why do we have an echo on that? I wanted to talk a little bit more about military losses and suicide. Why is that playing? It shouldn't be playing. Ah, the internet. You're gonna. And how serious this is in our nation. We are actually looking to, through NACO, to write some new legislation to bring to our president, who has an ear for this right now. I will say that I believe President Trump has made leaps and bounds for helping our military veterans and the caregivers that are required to take care of them. He has passed an executive order to, in hopes of ending veteran suicide in 4 or 5 years, making leaps and bounds with the VA and the orders that he's giving to do better service with the VA and get those resources to them much quicker. We are asking, we've actually got a few people to help write that legislation, and we will be hopeful by spring to present this in Washington as a legislative action for signature. I just wanted to show you to kind of a stark realization of what's really happening in this nation, not only with suicide of veterans, but with suicide of everyone. It's becoming an epidemic. I spoke about this, I've spoken about it a couple of times in the last several months. I spoke about it briefly last week in Port Orford, and it's, you know, it's becoming probably the second largest crisis next to opioids. And I'll reiterate one more time. Today, it's 9:30. Today, 8 veterans have committed suicide already today. And one of those veterans is an active service veteran right now. We're losing about 20 veterans a day nationwide. Think about that. I mean, over a period of a year, that's, I mean, it's a number we can't live with. So these are some of the facts that are out there right now. This is a small thing that was on CBS News a few weeks ago.
During a pressing emergency, rise in veteran suicides. A congressional subcommittee held a hearing today on military suicide prevention. On average, about 20 veterans die this way every day. Since 2017, at least 25 veterans have taken their lives on the grounds of VA facilities. 7 this year alone. Dean Reynolds has more on these heroes in crisis.
This is my favorite picture of us together. This was about 2 years before he died.
Alyssa Harrington's brother, Justin Miller, died by suicide in February of last year in the parking lot of this Veterans Administration hospital. A Marine veteran, he was 33. Gregory Miller is Justin's father.
He wanted to be in a military band.
Justin made the band, but the Marines saw he could make another contribution as a marksman in Iraq, manning a checkpoint with bomb-sniffing dogs.
The dog sat down, pulled the trigger. Those were his orders. And he said he did that for weeks, day in and day out.
When he left the Marines in 2007, his family says he had changed. While he still volunteered to play his trumpet at various occasions, he was increasingly depressed and even suicidal. Eventually, he sought help at a VA hospital.
We said we loved each other, but I said,
But after 3 days at the VA,
He went out to his car. He looked at his phone. He saw the text from my dad saying I will come home. And at some point, he took his own life.
experts in this field say veterans who kill themselves on VA grounds, and there were at least 4 just last month, are making a statement about their treatment. Federal investigation of Miller's death said that Minneapolis VA made multiple mistakes, from not scheduling follow-up to overlooking his access to firearms.
we have people, but they're not trained the way they're supposed to be.
Some 6,000 veterans kill themselves every year.
We have, in the last year, 240 interventions. We've actually stopped veterans from taking their lives.
Robert Wilkie is the VA secretary. The department serves 9.5 million people. Since October, the VA has screened 900,000 veterans for mental health issues.
Of that 900,000, we culled it down to 3,000. 3,000 veterans that our medical professionals say might be at risk of monitoring that. What does that monitoring entail? That means calls, that means visits, bringing them into our centers.
In Justin Miller's case, antidepressants came in the mail from the VA 2 days after he died.
And the worst part of his funeral was that they didn't have a life defibrillator. There was no defibrillator for him.
The silent trumpet at his grave was a gift from his dad. Dean Reynolds, CBS News, St. Paul, Minnesota.
I think one of the important things we need to take from that is think about what he said. Basically, the city of Brookings commits suicide every year. That's how large this is. And I think we need to find a way to reach out to veterans because we don't know the shoes that these people are walking in. We haven't lived in their shoes. And people say, well, how can they not deal with this? I just want to give another for instance. My brother served actively in Vietnam for 18 months. He was a farm boy, played baseball with us in the backyard every Saturday morning, lifted hay and took care of cows and chickens all the years we grew up. Never hunted, Never hurt anybody. He was a 4.0 probably GPA. I don't think they had GPAs back then. Was drafted in the military, 12 weeks in boot camp, another month or two in school. Went to Vietnam. This innocent country boy, within 5 minutes of being on the ground in Vietnam, shot and killed a man dead to defend himself. Just think about what went through his mind that evening, much less over the next 18 months of being in helicopters and killing aerial slaughter with 50 calibers, just flying over Vietnam, shooting people at random just because that was what he was ordered to do, as were so many of our veterans. And what these people go through mentally to deal with that, and then they come back home to sit at our breakfast and lunch tables and are supposed to be normal. We've got to do more to help that. We've got to do more to bring our people home and give them all the help they need. This man right here, he wrote a song. And I want to play the song for you, and if you would, please just bear with me. This is something very important to me, so I'm asking everyone to just bear with me. This is called Hometown Battlefield, and it's about the battlefield here in America that our veterans and people that deal with suicide are facing every day.
The song and me, and I'm embracing them back.
Just listen to the words to the song.
Got home from the service as the spring began its turn. 12 long months away. He folded up his uniform with the medals tucked inside. Started living for today. But the present could not find him, nor could his wife and kids. He was there, but he was gone. And soon his only comfort was a bottle and his gun. Something right that went so wrong. And the silence keeps on coming as the movie plays again. You can smell the yellow dust and death hanging on the wind. And we thought the war was over, but the headlines do reveal that another soldier died today on the hometown battlefield. He sits outside the courthouse with his pant legs tucked away, and no one knows his name. One wrong step there in the sand put him where he is today. One more just the same. All his memories live there in the space below his knees. Back when he was whole. But that IED didn't just relieve him of his legs. It blew apart his soul. And the silence keeps on coming as the movie plays again. You can smell the yellow dust and death flying on the wind. And we thought the war was over, but the headlines do reveal that another soldier died today on the hometown battlefield. And if you're wearing loafers, you ain't walked the burning sands. You ain't never had to shoot another living man. It don't matter if we won, it don't matter if we lost. They were following their orders, no matter the cost. So I remember what they've given when I see my flag unfurled, free against the sky. The way we seem to lose them when they get back to the world. Can someone tell me why? That the silence keeps on coming as the movie plays again. You can smell the yellow dust and death hanging on soldier died today on the hometown battlefield. Yes, we pray the war is over, but the headlines do reveal that another soldier died today on the hometown battlefield.
And I just want to say I think we need to do more, and I think there's a lot more that can be done. If you know someone that's thinking about suicide, a veteran or a regular human being, and you can just see something different, take the moment and just reach out and ask that person, are you okay? Do you need something? Can I help you? Or call someone to help that person. Again, you know, we're asking these people to come back, veterans and specifically, from situations that we cannot understand what they've gone through on those battlefields. And just walk back into our society and say, okay, turn it off and let's be normal again. Because not only are they dealing with the things that they, what would be crimes in this nation that they committed by killing and whatever they had to do in those situations, but they're also dealing with the infirmities that they've lost, their legs, their arms, their minds. There's a lot that goes along with the untold stories of war. So I would just ask that this community, this county, this country continue to remember our veterans and everyone who suffers from the struggles of mental and physical disease that we face. Thank you for...
Mr. Chair,
yes.
could we have another, subject to your approval, another moment of silence, and maybe those that might want to stand while we have that moment of silence can do so.
That's fine. Sure. Yes. Go ahead.
Gordon Clay, Brookings, Oregon. Let's bring it home to Curry County. We don't have 2018 final numbers yet. 2017, we lost 14 people in Curry County. That's matches the highest we've ever had. 5 of those were veterans. Last month, we lost another veteran. Somebody I would believe, I'm not going to say who, but I believe most of you know. It has got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to stand.
Go ahead.
Moment of silence, please. Mr. Chair, that was exceptional. Thank you very much.
All right, next we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Do I have any amendments?
I just have a change under number H. The original order said 15%. You were sent a revised order that said that pay increase would be at 10%. That is consistent with the temporary pay increase we've done in the past.
Okay. All right, so let me read the consent agenda. A, approve minutes, business meeting September 18th, 2019. B, to approve business meeting, special meeting in September 25th, 2019. C, to approve advanced health care. Community Advisory Council for Advanced Health Care. D, to approve a new hire juvenile administrative assistant. E, approve full-time equivalent increase for an employee in the district attorney's office. F, appoint members to the Board of Property Tax Appeals. G, to approve Deputy Code Enforcement Officer job position from part-time to full-time. And H, to approve temporary pay increase, senior accounting clerk. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as you just outlined. Thank you.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes.
Chair Paasch,
Aye?
motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it, now that we've already approved the agenda changes, is it too late to just rearrange the sequence of item number 7 on discussion and action items?
I don't have a problem.
We have several people here that are, I believe, for item 7C, State Oregon Parks Land Exchange. So if that's okay with the board, I'd suggest we move to that agenda item first.
I don't have a problem with that.
All right, we'll do that. We're going to move to 7C, and we'll get back to A and B. We have comments. Gary Garman? Morning, sir.
Morning, Commissioners. I couldn't let a day go by without being down here for a Flores Lake matter. I want to thank you for all the work that's gone into this agreement. It looks like something that everybody can not only live with, but flourish with. And hopefully this is a sign that state parks and the county will be able to move forward on the other issues that are out there and continue to add to the state parks and giving the county something they can make some serious money on. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bob Morrow. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Bob Morrow, Langlois, and what a great day. I think we've, over many years, gotten to this point where you have an opportunity to close out the Flores Lake Exchange and move forward with the state parks. It sounds like working with Mr. Huttl and his team will be a great opportunity for you going forward. I know there were 3 points that you were going to consider today. The third one that Mr. Huttl mentioned last week was potentially difficult for them was the timing on their team to do the trail work. I would suggest that you just accept the language that's there now and allow parks to work on their own pacing as they've done in the past. And it also sounds like we had a really great opportunity with Ms. Lang and the Juvenile Division working with parks, and our property up at Flores Lake is a great spot to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing Phase 1 close out today. I'd like to encourage you to work on a Phase 2. We have 400 acres that remain up there. That is still, all the challenges remain, and it's a great opportunity for the parks to take that over and for the county to obtain properties like McVeigh Park that could be real money makers for the county instead of just a nice piece of property creating a view shed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, so Ms. Schmelzer, I think we have a difference of wording on some of this.
Right, you have 2 contracts before you. Counsel Huttl can actually go into the detail on them. It's, I believe one shows with the time difference between the
5 years and then 2
5
years.
yep.
2 years and then 5 years.
5 versus 7, yeah. So, Counsel Huttl, do you want to just explain that?
Thank you, certainly. So really, there's only one difference between the 2 options for the board, and that is, again, the trail element. I was not available, sorry, I was ill at the last board meeting in Port Orford when Mr. Huttl came down and talked about it. He gave the explanation of why the state preferred the language, and you have 2 documents, printouts at your places here. Essentially, it's under the post-closing obligations, and it's section 10.1, and the state prefers the post-closing obligation that says within 2 years they'll begin the process of preparing a 5-year plan, versus the proposed from the county that said within 5 years they'll have a plan, or they'll have the trails completed. So really, that's what it comes down to. It's just a choice for the board to make, whether you want to go with the state's version. And, you know, that you've heard from the state, you've heard from the community, and I don't think staff has any real strong feelings about either way.
And I want to say, though, that when during the meeting, the parks did say they would do the 5 years. They don't prefer that, but they would do it. Commissioner Gold?
Well, I'm looking at, there's the green, right? And the
Yes.
state says, the state shall, within 5 years, after closing, complete.
That is ours, actually.
That's the
The
county's.
green is ours. Okay.
The red is
JJ.
theirs.
You blew it. 'Cause I'm seeing Huttles.
I'm colorblind, so don't tell me about red, green. So.
Okay. No further comment.
So basically, they're asking for 2 years to get the plan done and then begin the process. And we're asking for, or at least that's the option, or previously the board had asked that they get the planning and the work to be done completed in 5 years. So it's this board's choice on which way you'd rather go. So do I have comment, Commissioner Boice?
Yeah, I'm just very comfortable with the state taking the lead on this, and I think in the spirit of what we outlined 6 months ago, this board, well, 5 months ago, this board, I'm just going to give them that time, and we're going to be involved in this process. We're going to be at a supportive position, and they came to the table on 2 of those 3 items that Counsel Huttl outlined that give him a little bit of concern. So I'm very happy, and I think we just need to move forward. Let them take the lead on this, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
That's my
Gold?
preference.
Okay.
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Boyce, but I'm going to add something here. When Chris Havel was there, he explained that the extra time was needed to put out a quality product rather than something very quickly. So I am going to go with the Parks Department.
It's all been said over and over. Thank you.
And
Mr.
I'm going to
Chair.
abstain from comment on it. So do we have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So the motion would be to
Approve?
go with the state parks version of the agreement.
Of item number 3, yes, on the
Thank you.
5-year trail plan.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Boice.
Yes.
Vice Chair Boice, sorry. Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Commissioner Paasch. Chair Paasch.
I'm glad that we're getting this done. I do not still believe that it is a good deal for the county, so my vote is no.
Motion carried 2-1.
All right,
And I understand that there's 190 birds in the Flores Lake. Never mind.
we're going to move on to forensic audit, and this is something that's been bantered around a while. So we, Ms. Schmelzer, you had some comments on this?
I did. Charlene Harvey, our finance director, did a little digging into the options that we have if the board wants to pursue looking at departments, basically. And that was that we could ask our auditor to do an in-depth review. That is something we can do rather than paying someone for a forensic audit, which is quite expensive. We could just ask them to select a department a year and just do an in-depth audit to look at those, just to, so we could see the health of our county, basically.
Right.
And they're willing to do that. That would just be a side contract. That's typically about $6,000. It's less than $10,000. And they could start doing that this year already. We would probably want to pick what department we'd want them to look at first. I think I think we're all concerned really about county finances and what's the health of the county, because we do have such fiscal challenges that we may want to start there. That's up to the board. But rather than do a full-blown forensic audit, I just recommend we do the in-depth review through the auditor.
And I think I agree with that. Like I say, we've spoken about this several times. I would not get involved in a business and without doing some sort of holding one's feet to the fire on the bookkeeping and the audit and the way that the county does things. It always is nice to have another set of eyes to look at this. Mr. Barnes has been very gracious and looked through a lot of things that we've asked him to look through. And I fully agree that, I don't think the county needs a full forensic audit right now, but I think that what Ms. Schmelzer is speaking about is very important, that the taxpayers of this county understand that we are watching and that we are making sure that the money in this county is going where it's intended and our dollars are well spent. Commissioner Boice?
Well said. I'll just put a little exclamation mark on that in the notion that is somewhat rumored within the county that we are hiring at random and not with a lot of forethought and spending a lot of money. And as I look and watch, and I think the audits would bear that out, of course, it would be my preference to have the Commissioner's office be the first place to be audited, or maybe the second, doesn't matter. But I just want to assure the public that we are absolutely determined to figure every possible way to cut costs and provide the services and be available to the citizens and make this work. And I think we've got a lot of good evidence to demonstrate that that is happening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gold?
I think in order to move forward in a positive way, we need to dig in and look and see where everything's going and ways that we can improve. So I'm for it.
Okay. So I have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
And I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes?
Chair Paasch.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
So can we do this 5 minutes earlier, Commissioner Boice?
You can do whatever.
Because
I have till noon to get there. or
Okay, so
11.
what I'd like to do now, rather than go into the amnesty program, I'd like to take our break now, and we'll reconvene at 10:15. I will give you the extra 10 minutes on that. And thank you for everyone for understanding, please. And we'll bring up the amnesty when we get back. We're in recess.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
One of the things I really appreciate about our entire region is that we embrace who we are, and I think that's what unifies us. Once the timber and fishing industries collapsed, it took us a long time to get back on our feet. People didn't quite grasp the idea that once these jobs left, they weren't going to get other family wage jobs, and it crippled us.
Things were getting really dire. So we just saw that this was an opportunity to maybe look at that public land a little differently and how it could bring more dollars into our region.
The Wild Rivers Coast is so unique because there are more wild and scenic rivers here than anywhere else in the lower 48 states. The scenic beauty is just amazing. There's so many different places to go, from the national forest down to the protected ocean, and it's just a really special place.
I guess I didn't really know how special it was, though, until I moved away to Portland and came back and saw all the potential here.
We're uncrowded, we're unspoiled, and we're a little difficult to get to, but my God, once you come here, you fall in love.
We just thought if we could pull people to come into this Wild Rivers Coast and stay longer and explore a little farther into our backcountry, there was a lot of opportunities for them to experience.
I think our whole future is at stake here. This area is ready to go. We just need to give it a little kick in the butt.
I'm gonna be honest, when the Rural Tourism Studio came here, I was skeptical because I didn't see far enough ahead that we actually could collaborate regionally, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It's been amazing.
The Rural Tourism Studios was the first time we were able to come together as a region to talk about the future of our economy.
If we can have a strong tourism economy in this area, it's going to benefit the whole community.
We have to rely on ourselves, and I think through this program, it's sort of opened our eyes to what we could do when we work together. Community leaders really focused on 3 areas: outdoor recreation, food and agricultural tourism, and really building community relationships.
In our area, a lot of the food that's grown all gets shipped away. And so now we're realizing that we can capture some of that local food that's grown here. The Eat Fresh and Local Action Team has hosted a series of networking events bringing together the area growers with the area vendors so that we could have more local food available to the visitors to our area. And now we're seeing more local food in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, and we have a new local food co-op.
We created a farm trail from Bandon to Port Orford. We did 9 U-Pick farms, and it just gained traction, and people loved it.
Langlois is less than 500 people. It's very small. So we have to bring in tourists. And being on the farm trail, even though it's just beginning, has really helped do that. We really want to make it a destination for anybody. My mom and I began Dragonfly Farm just 3 years ago. When I found out that I could grow a seed and turn that into food, it was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you do this? I just quit my day job and I just signed the paper to be an official co-owner of the farm. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and grow with the community.
Out of the Outdoor Recreation Action Team, we came up with a series of maps that show where the best places to go recreate are. We know where we're going to send people now, and we got a great map that shows all the best places to go see.
For us to get a mapping project done to this extent is pretty impressive. We're patting ourselves on the back. I don't know if anybody else is, but we're doing it.
From that, we decided that there was some places that needed help, so we came up with a mountain bike plan, and we also worked on designating a state scenic bikeway. The Outdoor Recreation Action Team was also looking at how we can make scuba diving better in this area. So we came up with the idea for a scuba fill station. So now people that want to come and dive in this area, they can dive for multiple days because they can get their tanks filled up again. When I started the Rural Tourism Studio, my business, South Coast Tours, was really small. And now we've grown to about 5 or 6 guides, and we're doing tours all over from Brookings all the way up to Coos Bay.
Overall, tourism is on the rise here. We've had a bang-up last 2 years, and it's like a breath of fresh air down here.
My hope for the area is that we still keep that sense of place.
Loving a place to death is a big concern that I have, and it's a balance. We're going to promote tourism, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. One of the biggest reasons that this area has been so successful since the tourism studio is the people that are involved. We have a lot of great, motivated, smart people who understand the need to promote tourism in the right way, and it's really all about the people.
When you live in a rural community like we do, from Bandon down to Brookings, and you're strapped for cash, relationships are crucial.
As a community, I think you need to come together and find out what your mission and goals are collectively. Then you can work into smaller groups, knowing that you have the backing of the whole community behind you.
As long as everybody's just super excited about it and passionate about what they're doing and they can work together, then anything's possible.
Own what you have and don't try to be something that you're not. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take a long time. So roll up your sleeves and just dig in with an open mind.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101, guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all, of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is, and what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches, an oceanfront promenade, and a downtown core packed with restaurants, shops, and even a beach-type arcade. Cannon Beach is home to one of Oregon's most photographed natural wonders, Haystack Rock. Get your shots from the beach, or take a short drive up to Ecola State Park and look down on this 235-foot work of art. The picturesque small town is filled with art galleries, shops, and cafes. Ready for more? 10 miles to the south, this is the view from Cape Falcon. You're 700 feet above the Pacific. Here, the Pacific Coast Byway has been carved out of Neahkahnie Mountain and held in place by stone walls built in the 1930s by craftsmen in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Upon descending the mountain, the highway drifts inward around Tillamook Bay to Tillamook, the unofficial dairy capital of Oregon. The verdant valley of dairy farms in this area produces 25 million gallons of milk annually. Much of that is processed into natural cheddar cheese. And near more than 800 miles of navigable waters, Tillamook is a crossroads for North Coast recreation. From here, you owe it to yourself to veer off Highway 101 to explore the Three Capes Scenic Loop. This drive places you right at the beach, beginning with Cape Mears, home to the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. 9 lighthouses stand sentinel along Oregon's coastline. They're monuments to our maritime heritage, towering links to the past, and as much a part of the rugged Oregon coastal landscape as any offshore monolith. The Cape Mears Lighthouse was first illuminated in 1890. Oregon's oldest lighthouse is at Cape Blanco, the westernmost point in the state. It was commissioned in 1870 to aid shipping generated by gold mining and the lumber industry. The 93-foot-high Yaquina Head Lighthouse is the tallest in Oregon. Today, its automated light continues to aid navigation at the entrance to Yaquina Bay. Many of the lighthouses are open to the public. Most happen to be excellent places to view nesting seabirds and offshore sea life. Tide pools, those rocky areas between high and low tides, support unique and diverse plants and animals. Vast amounts of colorful, otherworldly creatures wait to be discovered. But walk cautiously. These organisms are tough enough to withstand the pounding surf, but are utterly vulnerable to human activity. Wildlife and sea life abound on the coast.
There are 6 national wildlife refuges along the Oregon coast. The Pacific Coast Scenic Byway bisects these refuges or goes alongside them. It provides you the opportunity to see a wide variety of abundant wildlife, including seabirds, seals and sea lions, deer and elk, and many other wildlife.
Cape Kiwanda lies at the southern end of the Three Capes Scenic Loop, near the town of Pacific City. Here you'll find a second haystack rock on the byway. Hike up the dune to marvel at stunning views of sandstone formations as they turn yellow, gold, or even red in the changing sunlight. If your timing is right, you'll spot 1 or 2 of the dory fleet sprint onto the beach after a day of fishing. How's this for a dinner setting? Restaurants along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway accommodate just about any taste. Many serve an ocean view with every meal. Up and down the coast, you'll find seafood, of course, but don't limit yourself just because you're by the water. The Central Coast begins around Lincoln City, which is one of the larger communities on the byway. It has a reputation for being windy and was recognized by Kite Lines magazine as the best place to fly a kite in North America. It was incorporated from several small towns and as a result offers a sandy beach that is 7.5 miles long. A number of small state parks lie nestled along the ocean between Lincoln City and Newport. Stop, get out of your car, and take in the commanding views that are there, right next to your all-American road. Depot Bay boasts the world's smallest navigable harbor, 6 square acres in all. A seawall runs the length of the downtown, so everywhere you go, you're rewarded with a dramatic view of the Pacific. It's considered Oregon's whale-watching capital, with thousands making their way past Oregon each fall and spring. Fishing and whale-watching excursions regularly set sail from this little harbor. Leaving Depot Bay, you'll soon find yourself at Cape Foulweather, a basalt outcropping that looms 500 feet above the water. It was here, in 1778, British Captain James Cook first sighted the mainland of North America on the Pacific coast. A fierce storm that almost put an end to his expedition earned this rugged stretch of coastline its name. Coastal weather can change by the hour. You will find a lot of wet days, but rain can become blue sky with white clouds in an afternoon. Mist kissing the headlands burns away, or storms can last for days. Some people come for those storms. Whether you find sunbursts of happiness or cloud cover like a quilt, there's always a reason to come back. Like Lincoln City, Newport is one of the larger towns on the byway. The historic bayfront on the north side of Yaquina Bay hosts one of Oregon's largest commercial fishing fleets. It has a busy, genuine working waterfront feel, with fish plants and boats coming and going from as far away as Alaska. On the south side of the bay is the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Share waters beneath the ocean.
Thank you, John.
Amnesty next, Commissioner? Amnesty is next, yes, sir.
Okay.
Boy, you just gotta wait for some of these commissioners sometimes. I'll tell you, we're 49, no. Oh, you're early. My big mouth too soon again, didn't I?
Never late.
I
All
feel
right.
like the energy in
Ready?
here a lot better than the last group.
I hear that a lot.
It is really enjoyable to come to a commissioner's meeting.
Thank you. We are back in session, 10:15.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Boice was back on time. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for that extra time. There's $293,000 Title II Regional Advisory money available. Our number one priority is for the Curry County Fire Training Center, Emergency and Fire Training Center, and so I will give a report on that at Commissioner's time. And thank you for that time. They got me right in, and I presented a letter, which I will also present during Commissioner comments. Thank you again.
Okay. Mr. Barnes?
When you're done speaking, please.
Well, you want to cut me up after, or what?
I just want to hear what you have to say before I comment on it.
All right, so we have had conversations for several months I have had with Jim Colin and the tax assessor's office. I have recently had a conversation with Ms. Crockett. I have had conversations with our code enforcement officers, and as you know, Mr. Colin has presented testimony to this board as well as slideshows showing some of the, I would call, severe violations of our codes and our planning of properties that were filed for as pole buildings and or garages or outbuildings of sort that are now 2 and 3 bedroom homes. As many of us may know, there was recently a home here in Curry County valued in 7 figures that there was no planning on, there was no permits filed on that property. So what I am looking to do is have an amnesty program for the county that would begin on in the first of the year and go through June 30th. So it'd be the first 6 months of next year. It would be a 6-month amnesty program to allow anyone in the county that owns property that they know is not up to code and or planned and or properly permitted to come in and get that done. There will be no penalties for doing that. They will still need to file for the proper permits, and they will still be will need to be assessed for the property tax due on that property, and I believe state law requires we go back 5 years on that.
6. I think it's 6. That's what Colin said at one time.
We can ask Jim.
I believe it's 5 or 6. Oh, okay. Anyway, so that's what we'll be requiring, but yes, you will need to come in and file your permits. We will waive all penalties if this board is to agree to do this. However, after June 30th of next year, you will need to know that the penalties will be severe. So this would be a great time for people in the county to come forward and get unpermitted buildings, outbuildings, additions, whatever they've done on their property that is not proper and legal to get that in line. Commissioner Gold?
I think it's important to note that, number one, those buildings are going to have to be inspected. Is that correct?
Correct.
And make sure they're up to code. And number 2, they're going to be responsible for the back taxes. So.
Yes. Commissioner Boice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been a lot of discussion, even before we got here, about this possible plan. So to see this progressing forward, I have 2 issues, not necessarily issues, but just comments that I would like to have the board consider. Number 1, the time frame here being 6 months. I question if that is the best, if it isn't perhaps a little bit too long. I think that if we do proper, and I think you've already made some progress on this as well, good public notice, get the word out through neighbors, etc. If 4 months wouldn't be ample time, you just mentioned June 1st. You know, I think the goal here is to get people to come in on their own. Related to that, with the effort we're making on the code enforcement, getting a secondary person, hopefully full-time, there's that perception, as you know, in the public that I don't want anybody coming unannounced to my property. I don't want anybody on my property, you know, the personal, public, private property rights, etc. So I just don't want the county, and I'm not saying that we're at great risk of this, but I want to state here that I don't want the county to get that reputation that we're coming after everybody and we're going to do it this way. I don't think your plan suggests that. However, we need to be prepared for public backlash here, and we need to work with everybody and everyone that we all that we possibly can to make this work for our people that have to deal with these folks and get them in line. But I don't want to at least start with the notion that we're bringing in a heavy hammer. Does that make sense, Mr. Chair?
It does, and what we're asking is, this is an amnesty program. This isn't Marshall. We're asking people to come in and get their properties up to date. If after the amnesty program closes they have not, then there will be consequences, but they're of their own volition. It's not something we're forcing on them. So again, this is something that we're going to ask people to come in, and if someone has something, say they bought a piece of property and they have a question on it, they may want to come in and ask and find out. And these kind of things will increase our tax rolls, will increase the revenues generated by the county to be able to properly staff our planning office, to be able to increase our assessors so that we can get off of a 15 or 16-year roll back into a normal 5 to 10-year roll, 5 to 8-year roll. So these are all things that that I believe the county will gain from this because I believe it is the county's hope that we will have a 30-day turnaround in the future from the filing of a building permit to the execution of it. So these are ways to get that done that will help also to further advancement in economic development and building here in the county. So, Commissioner Gold?
I think it's important to note that some individuals have purchased properties not knowing that they weren't permitted properly, and so there may be some problems in that area.
And that's what I said. If someone has something on their property that they are unsure about, and this may be an issue that is going to end up in the courts on civil penalties, but it won't be something that the county would be involved in, I don't believe. But I would leave that more to Counsel Huttle's interpretation of the laws on that, and how that would play out. But I'm just asking this board that we look at, on Commissioner Boice's comment, I think 6 months is good. First of all, I want to also make sure that the citizens are given enough time to prepare to come in and face the amnesty and what's going to come of that, that they can, have an extra month or two in preparation for that. So I think to keep it at a 6-month from January 1st through June 30th of 2020 would be a great time. And again, I think it would be imperative of Ms. Schmelzer's office and possibly planning, along with County Counsel and Jim Colin, to come up with the penalties for this if they don't come in. And I think they need to be stringent penalties.
So-
Ms. Schmelzer?
Just a comment on the penalties. So the county does have to set their fee schedule. That's coming up pretty soon. So at that time, we can propose the fee or the penalty that people would face, and that would be discussed amongst the board, and the board would have to settle on that. So we do have to do that. And then just one other thing, the order that's before you actually says that it would be October until April. So if the board wants to go with January to June, just a note that we're going to have to change the order before we sign it. No big deal. I just want to make sure the record is clear on that.
And I know you and I spoke about October up to April, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people come in November to pay their taxes.
Sure.
So the office is busy during that time. I think January it kind of starts to fall off, so this kind of thing might be a little bit more of a constant threat of people coming in.
Sure.
Commissioner Boice?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Following your explanation there, I am comfortable with a 6-month, and it can be any sequence that we just identified here. I just want to make just one more comment, and then I'll be ready to vote, Chair Paasch. This board's been in business for 9 months now, and I think one of the greatest sources of pride that I see is what's going on in our community development, almost without exception. There is a spirit of serving the public in those 7 departments. It is 7, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
In those 7 departments, and I don't want to lose that. Your 6 months instead of 4 may actually give, especially planning, building, code enforcement, extra time, assessor, because let's hope that there might be an avalanche of people wanting to come in. So we're going to need to give them ample time. I just don't want to lose. I want people to feel comfortable, to the extent we can affect that, to come into our planning department, come into our building department, and believe that they're going to really be helped, and that we can assist them to understand their responsibilities and overcome. I just don't want to lose that new spirit that I think we have all helped bring to this whole program. I'm not predicting that, but I just really want to emphasize how important I think that is to the public as we try and unite this county and solve our problems. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Gold?
I think when we're publicizing this, and I think it should be done for the next couple of months, we need to indicate to all individuals, if you purchased your property recently, you need to make sure that it was permitted correctly.
I agree. Counsel?
Thank you. Just to comment on the options on the timing, you could start it now and continue it through April. and then revisit in April if you think more time is needed. I'm not sure how it would roll out, announcing now that we're going to start it in January, what happens in these next few months. So if you just start it now and then reconsider in April whether you're going to continue to June or another 6 months or something if it's successful, however that goes. But that's just a little bit of input on the timing of the implementation of it is all.
How does the board feel on time?
Mr. Chair, I think that is the best approach, the way Counsel just explained it.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so then we'll go from
October 1st, is it?
The way it's
To
written.
April.
The way it's written is October 1st to April.
Okay, so we'll do
For
that.
October.
And we can visit any time, revisit. Thank you.
Mr. Barnes?
No, thank you.
You're up.
I think this is a really exciting program, and we look forward to working with people as we have in the past to try to facilitate everybody having the proper permits in place. The one thing that is a little bit of a concern, and I think people need to realize, is that while we can work with people and we can interpret county codes to their favor so they can get permits, sometimes we're not able to interpret state or federal codes to the benefit of an applicant to get them in compliance. So as long as there's a realization that there will be people that come in that we're not going to be able to fix their problem. And I just think that it's important to recognize that up front. We can do what we can in regards to a county rule or a county ordinance provision as long as it provides us the ability for interpretation. And what we have been doing the last 9 months is just that. We interpret the code in favor of the applicant. That's just the way we've been implementing the code, but we can't waive state or federal law.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate the board hearing this. May I have a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice.
Aye.
Chair Paasch.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we have 7D, Moss Adams. Ms. Schmelzer?
Yes, so as you know, we started our strategic planning process. Our planning consultant is Moss Adams. They have been in the county for 3 days now. They've met with all the department heads, I think. They've begun to talk to members in the community. They were present last night when we met with the cities and the ports. And they are here now to do their kickoff with the board, and so the public can watch this also to see where they're at in the process. So, thank you.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Julie. So we've met, but I'll reintroduce myself for the record. My name is Colleen Rosillas. I'm a senior manager with Moss Adams Consulting. I'm joined by Annie Rose Favreau. She's a senior consultant on our team. There's one other person on our team, the partner in charge of our group, Mark Starenka. He couldn't be here today, but you will see his face around as we continue this work. So we are local government consultants, and we do strategic planning and management consulting exclusively for local governments, primarily on the West Coast. We're really excited to be here, and we've had a really good couple of days meeting your team. In particular, we had just a fantastic management work session yesterday. Really excited about the work that we accomplished yesterday, and you should be really proud of the management team you have in place and how engaged they were and excited about this process. So that speaks a lot about your organization. So we are here doing strategic planning. Right now we're in the information gathering phase, and we're going to collect a little bit of information from you today, and we'll also talk to you a little bit about what we have learned. We're in the initial phases, so nothing here is set in stone. Our next presentation to you will have the benefit of all of our interviews and community input. We will be doing a staff survey, things like that. So we'll just walk through. Scroll down. Oh, I scroll. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, well, I already did welcome. So we'll walk through a little bit about what our process is, and then talk to you about our initial kind of needs assessment or SWOT analysis, and then we'll gather some information from you about values and vision for the county, and we'll talk about next steps. And at any point during this process, please feel free to interrupt and ask questions. We like more input than less, so don't be shy. So our strategic framework, you'll see we have sort of a pyramid graphic here. Right now at the beginning, we're focused on the top of this pyramid, so mission, vision, and values. And this is really what guides us long term. And this should really be what the board is focused on. So we're setting the long-term vision and we're defining what the role of government is in the county. We'll be establishing strategic goals. We'll be developing those goals based on our work as well as in conjunction with the management team, and we'll be bringing them to you to talk about prioritization to make sure that these goals make sense. We'll work on objectives, and then we're going to establish performance measures for the whole organization so that on a regular basis you're coming back to the board and to the public and saying, this is what we said we would do, and here's where we are in the process. And if we're deviating from where we hoped we would be, then we're going to provide you with a framework to explain that. We're also going to provide you with frameworks to develop departmental implementation plans. Everybody's got a role in achieving the strategic plan, as well as establishing some performance measures internally so that we can hopefully keep this plan moving forward and not put it on a shelf. So our planning process, we're in October. October just started. So here we are in that first bullet. We're interviewing folks. We're developing our mission, vision, and values. We'll be releasing a staff survey soon, so we'll collect information from staff that will help determine our needs assessment. We want to make sure everyone employed by the county is able to provide input. One thing that we really like to do, both in our staff survey and in public input, we always put some open-ended boxes about what we like about working here, where we want to see the county going, and we include those quotes in our strategic plan document. So in your printed document, you've got some, actual language from the people that live and work here about what's great about it and where we want to be. We'll be doing goal and objective development. We'll have at least one more work session with management to work on that and performance measures. We'll do public input at some point during this process. We talked quite a bit with the management team yesterday about what we think public input will look like. We're definitely going to try to meet the community where they are and get folks at perhaps some community events, perhaps do some open houses, some town halls, opportunities to reach the community that might not be able to come to a board meeting. And then we hope to have this plan adopted by you by the end of January. Julie, did you want to say anything else about the timeline?
Just that we originally were hoping that it would be done by December, but we did get started a little late on the process, so it might go into January, which actually ends up being really good timing with our wage study as well. So both projects should be coming to a close by the end of January. So come February, when we're just beginning to talk about budget, we have a very clear direction on where we want to go.
Yeah, and oh, sure, go ahead.
Well, after you're done.
We're going to do our best to have a pretty complete draft before it goes for public input. So typically things don't change a ton based on public input. We try to use the public for prioritization, and so you'll see a close to final draft in December, regardless of whether or not we adopt it in December or January.
So my question is, here you're talking to our board at the very beginning, and then at the end it says board adoption of plan, and you've got county staff, public staff. Are there other opportunities where the board will be involved in the process along the lines?
Yeah, so typically we do at least 2 work sessions with the board. So we do this one, and then we come back and we also do some prioritization. And we can do that prioritization either in a public meeting, or we can have those conversations one-on-one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay?
So today's a work session?
Yes.
Thank you.
Today's the works. Are you working?
Oh, yeah, good. Sometimes.
Okay. Annie Rose is going to tell us a little bit about what we've learned so far in our work.
Yeah, so as part of the strategic planning process, we like to start out with, call it a SWOT analysis. So it's looking at the organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So really trying to understand what's the current situation of the organization, but then also the environment. A little closer? Is that better?
Thank
Excellent. What is the environment that you're working within? Because really we want to be taking advantages of your strengths. We want to be taking advantages of what's working really well and building upon that success. And then also looking at where are there risks, where are there threats to this process, and to you guys working really, really well and effectively, and using this plan to help mitigate some of those issues. So this is very early days. This is just what we've been able to gather in terms of our very first interviews, our very first phone calls and conversations with stakeholders. So this will definitely be built out and informed more as we go through our staff survey process and gather more information. So just to go through this, sort of what we have found so far. So looking at internal strengths. So this is strengths of the organization, of the community, all of that. We have a lot of great things on this list. I don't think anything will be a very large surprise to anyone. You obviously have a lot of natural beauty, a lot of natural resources here. One of the things I will highlight on this list is dedicated employees. It's been very clear through our conversations that there are so many people here who are really committed to the work that they do, very dedicated to the community and giving back and being really strong public servants. And that's great to see, because that's really going to be the basis for all the rest of the work that you do. So that was exciting for us to really see that come through very strongly in our conversations. Moving on to some of the more challenging aspects in terms of what the organization is dealing with right now. Obviously, financial sustainability and stability is at the top of this list. That won't be a surprise. But that has a lot of cascading impacts throughout the rest of the organization in terms of service delivery, what you can do with limited resources, in terms of job stability for county staff, or the perception of job stability. That came up quite a bit in terms of feeling like we want to make sure that this is a place that we are going to be for many years. And then internal alignment around priorities was another really common theme that we heard here around how do we get on the same page? How do we get on the same page with the board? How do we get on the same page on the management team so that we can all be really working together as a team towards the priorities that we've identified? Looking at external threats, this is really sort of that broad picture. What is the environment that you're working within? Again, economic vitality is really at the top of this list, figuring out how can we have job opportunities. And really related to that, these are very much go back and forth and support each other, but affordable housing, making sure that if you have job openings, you actually have housing for folks who are potentially coming into the community as well, and being able to really support that. And I think the other piece on here is the diverse community needs. We've heard that there's, you cover a really large geographic range, you have a lot of different folks in this community, and so figuring out how do we make sure that we're really meeting this variety of needs that we hear.
Annie, I have a question before you go on. Yeah. I see that opioids is considered an external threat to county governance there. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? What were the comments on that?
Yeah, would you like to go for it? That came up quite a bit just in terms of saying, what are the challenges we're seeing in our community? And drug use being one of those things that really can impact so many different aspects here. It can impact who's in the market to have a job. It can impact how our health service is being used. It can impact just the feel of the community itself. And so this is an issue that obviously is not unique to this area at all, but is definitely being strongly felt here.
Thank you.
Would you add anything to that?
No.
Diverse community, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Diverse community needs. Just spend a little time on that, if you would, please.
Yeah, and this gets back to, we heard quite a bit about that there is a dynamic happening here of folks who've been in this area for a really long time, folks whose families have lived there for a really long time, who've really have deep roots in the community, and then new people who are coming in and who are excited to be here, really want to live here, appreciate what this county has to offer, but potentially have different perspectives or needs in terms of what they think the community should be, what they think the county should be delivering for them, and what that looks like. So just trying to figure out how you balance that in a really thoughtful manner.
Thank you. Good.
So finally, we like to end with external opportunities. So what are we seeing out there that we think that we can really be working towards and taking advantage of? And you do obviously have this very unique landscape and climate here that's going to be the basis for things like tourism, for things like outdoor activities, and that's already happening, but how can we strengthen those activities potentially? I think partnerships and collaborations came up a lot of saying how can we be working both with our cities and our ports, but also nonprofits in the community, all of those pieces, so that we're really taking advantage of the great amount of expertise and knowledge that we have in this community and working together to make things as efficient and effective as possible. Any questions on this before we move on? Yeah.
Sorry, just a comment. You mentioned town special districts and nonprofits. Are you also looking at our federal and state agency partners in those partnerships and collaborations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing is I didn't see private industry listed on there. Any public-private opportunities that you're going to explore?
Yes, that is absolutely on the list. These were the ones that sort of came up most frequently
Sure.
in our conversations,
And
but those are
the two
absolutely
comments I just made, I did not give to you in either our in-person interview or the management session. And I know you gave me the card to give you comments, but it's just things that I've thought about after seeing it again. So.
Yeah, and I think especially in areas like tourism, that presents a whole, you have a whole different range of partnerships that you can attract when you're looking at something like tourism versus maybe something like healthcare. So I think it really depends too on where we're saying our priorities are, and then finding who are all the many, many potential partners that we could be working with. So thank you for adding this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about mission and vision and values and what we use a strategic plan for. So this is really the foundation of the strategic plan. Even though if it's at the top of the pyramid, maybe we need to fix our graphic to make it like the foundation of a house or something. But really, what we like to see is that we're using a strategic plan. We set a strategic plan for maybe 3 to 5 years. The mission and the vision and values may not change for quite some time. We have some clients where the communities have had the same vision for 20 or 30 years and it still resonates. But what they do is they help us to make decisions. In local government, we have limited resources. We often have ideas that may not be funded. And so how do we make decisions? How do we compromise? We use these statements to ask, okay, we have a program, we have a service that we're thinking about either expanding or introducing, or we're thinking about cutting. Does it support our vision? Does it help us achieve our mission, and does it align with our values? And if it doesn't, then we shouldn't be pursuing that. And what we would like to see built here, and we think is in the most effective local governments, is that we all adopt that as part of our organizational culture. We believe in these, and that future boards and future management teams, when we're long gone, are referring to these as really foundational as part of our culture. And so that's why we're spending a lot of time working on this, both with management and with you, because we really want this to resonate and feel like it belongs to you. Did you have a question?
No, I was just agreeing with you. I think that a lot of what we do here with the mission or vision part of this is that we hopefully hold future boards to the vision of this county and what the citizens are going to contribute to this, that we all adhere to what we agree to here, not only with this board, but hopefully with coming boards, that we would all agree to this. And I know there's going to be minor changes, but this will be the direction that I hope that the citizens of this county want to go to. Commissioner Gold?
I just think without a vision and a strategic plan, we end up going off on tangents and not focusing as we should. So thank you.
Yeah, and we will tell you from experience, we're regularly brought in. I mean, people don't usually call us because everything's going great, right? We're regularly brought in to do things like management reviews and organizational assessments for organizations that have really strayed away from what their core mission is. And it's really easy to butt heads when you don't have a document to refer to, when you don't have, foundational pieces of work that can help define who you are, even as individuals might change, even as your environment might change. So
that's what I said last night at the meeting. I can't imagine a county not having a strategic plan. I can't imagine that. So
yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about values first. So values talk about who we are. And it's typically really thinking about how do we treat each other? How do we treat the public? What are our expectations for our organizational culture? And we like to get some thoughts from you if we're defining what organizational values are, what you think are the priorities. So we're saying to ourselves and the community, this is who we are as a county. We have some examples, and these are just examples. So I'll just give you a minute to read them.
Alphabetical order?
We're trying to be as We're not trying to stack the deck.
You want to ask each one individually?
Yeah, well, we'd just like to hear from you. What do you think? And they don't. It doesn't have to be on this list. But what do you think when you think about Curry County and about the government? What do you think describes who we are?
Pick three, Commissioner Boice.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm pausing at each one. Obviously, that is a great list. It represents high goals. It represents wonderful principles that we should all live and work by.
Doesn't have to be on that list, though. You can pick something that's
Well, I'm not
on
going to add
that
anything.
list.
No need.
Okay.
No need. You know, it starts with accountability, ends with transparency. That says it all, in my view, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Gold.
I think accountability is very important. I think the public needs to see that we are accountable. Sustainable. We need to make our county sustainable. And gosh and golly, this is hard.
I know. That's why you hired us.
I think accountability goes with honesty. I think it goes with, okay, let's say professional.
I would probably say I like being proactive in a county. You know, growing with the county and keeping up with what's going on in the world, getting ahead of it rather than behind it. I like being very ethical. And I think accountability would probably, listening to all three of us, it would probably be at the top of the list. But I also like to be very collaborative with other organizations. Like I said when you interviewed me yesterday, relationships and what we do are immeasurably important. We have to have relationships that last a lifetime in order for us to succeed. People have to trust you, of course, and you build that through long-term relationships. So I think that to be collaborative with other groups is extremely important. Commissioner Boice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have good peripheral vision. That's why I don't always look at people.
I try not to hold my hand up too high here. You do excellent. You know, there's a certain portion of our public that sees these as trendy buzzwords. So the challenge for us, and certainly in the next 14 months, 16 months, is to make this a reality and not let it be just those buzzwords. When you say excellent, sometimes perfection kills the good, and it's also can be a delay. And so I want to set realistic goals through this process, and then at the end of that 16 months, yeah, I'll be held accountable.
All right.
We will be held accountable. Thank you.
No, you. Go ahead.
So I'd like to just get into, we heard accountability from all three of you. And so when we establish value statements, so we'll have a word, right? And then maybe we'll have a sentence that explains what we mean by accountability. So let's focus a little bit on accountability and think about sitting in your chairs, what does that mean to you?
I guess I'll lead off with that one. Accountability, like we spoke about last night, you know, and there's another word that comes into this, which is trust. And I think a lot of the incorporated cities, the ports in the county, have looked at the board and have lost trust. I think a lot of the citizens of the county have lost trust in what this county board is here for, what we do and what we're supposed to do, and our leadership. And I think that starts to, you know, the accountability of what we do will bring that back, but it's going to take time. So I think building that trust back through by being accountable to the citizens of this county would be my line. Commissioner Gold?
If we say we're going to do something, it needs to be done. That's accountability, and done well.
Commissioner Boice?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned trust. I think that trust is slowly returning. And commissioners sometimes are an easy target, as we know. But the dedication comes from your own heart. And when you sign up for a job this intense, I knew it was going to be busy. I didn't know it was going to be this intense. So I'm enjoying especially the last 9 months, but the absolute 2.5 years of that intensity and seeing some successes, and that motivates more success, motivates more enthusiasm. So yes, it comes back to trust. Accountability is making decisions and standing by them, and then having the responsibility to identify and explain those decisions, even 2 years later, even 4 years later. And so I have to ask myself that, and I'm willing to take on that role. And I think I, again, have the obligation to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Back at you.
Thank you. That was great. This is fantastic input. So we are going to move along to the fun part, which is visioning. So a community vision, often what we do is we'll ask you to think about, okay, let's think about 10 years from now. We're reading a newspaper article about something that happened with respect to county government, and what does the headline say? We're thinking about really long-term, who do we want to be? It doesn't necessarily have to be achievable, measurable, check off the box, right? But what we want to think about is it's also not likely to change over time. We want it to be something we can hang our hats on long term. So if 20 years from now, all new people are in this room, they're still thinking we want to achieve a vision for the county. And we're going to show you a couple of examples. And something that I just want to say from the management work session yesterday is people really resonated with this first vision example, and in particular the first phrase, so a place where people want to live. That was something that the management team really felt was important and valuable. We might see that in our vision statement based on how much people like that. So just take a moment to read these, and then we're going to ask you to think a little bit about the future of the county.
The future for me would be sustainable jobs, to bring our children home after they complete their school, their education, grow up in the communities that they were raised, and grow their families in these communities. Seeing our ports continue to grow and thrive to bring tourism into this county through the many facets of ways that we have to do that, through fishing and recreational sports, to our commercial fishing, to all of that, and seeing a sustained growth that is careful and well planned. But we have to grow this county to sustain it. We have to grow the county to be able to pay our bills for the future. Commissioner Gold?
I would say it's a place where people want to live, it's a safe place, and it's economically stable.
Commissioner Boice?
Thank you again. My mom did a play in the Pistol River area last weekend, and there was 12 tables with couples representing 12 different families. As a little kid, I lived at Mac Arch, and so all those families, most of those families, were very familiar, the names to me. And so in this play, we would go up and they would take about 6, 7, 8 minutes just to explain their travel to this part of the country, this part of Oregon. And I remember there's several stories that go with that, but it was just fascinating to hear these families hear these actors represent the old-time families. And one of them was, I got here, it's the first time I've ever seen that much water. I could not believe it. And I think it was one of the carpenters, doesn't matter, but in those days, until the 1920s, the people that come from Grants Pass through the road, they made it to this side of the Chetco River, and from Brookings on, there was only a trail to Pistol River, a horse trail. And so that's how Pistol River was homesteaded. And so when you look at what that meant to them to see the ocean for the first time and realize it was not a lake, and Port Orford, we have the westernmost part, Cape Blanco, the entire United States. So in that, with this incredible area, I don't think we lose sight of that, but there's a little bit of a burden on us to remember that and to move forward. And twice in those two paragraphs, there's 3 or 4 sentences that mentioned It mentions the quality of life, and we've had a head start, should have a head start on a lot of other areas. So it's again our obligation to move forward and understand that and do everything we can towards those 3 words. And I think we are. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I think what I'm hearing from that is perhaps about the natural environment and maybe a sense of wonder and gratitude for the environment and where we are.
And a wonderful balance and mix, as Chair Paasch just mentioned, with you cannot have a culture that doesn't have reasonable growth, in my opinion. So it's got to be that mix. And somebody told me the other day, our greatest export in Curry County is our kids. So to hear Christine Neal Mather today find her livelihood here, again, that's a tremendous motivation for me. I don't know if any of my sons will be back, or kids or grandkids, maybe at some point, but it's going to be a while. So we got some work out ahead of us.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for your input on that. So I'm going to skip over this part. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what our next steps are. So we're going to take all this input that we've received from you and we'll draft up some mission, vision, and value statements. We're going to send those out to the management team as a survey to take a look at what their input is and come back to you then with some draft statements to see if they resonate with you, and we'll finish those up and hopefully have those finalized by our next meeting. We'll be doing a staff survey, and we'll be working on goals and objectives and performance measures. And then we'll be working on prioritizing those with you and adopting the plan. So you'll see a lot of us over the next few months. You all have our contact information, and we'd love to hear from you. We really want as much information from you as possible and your thoughts. This is your plan. We're just shepherding you through the process. So as we go forward, please feel free to reach out, and we're always happy to talk about what we're doing and where we are and what's going on. Any questions?
I just want to get clarification on the staff survey. My understanding is that we do want to engage all employees, so all employees are going to have the opportunity to answer that survey.
Yes, we do want to engage all employees, yes.
And then there is also the opportunity for public surveying at the public input stage, correct?
Yes, yeah. And we have already done we've done some phone calls with members of the community as well, and we'll be reaching out. A number of folks recommended other people who are important to engage in the process, so we'll be reaching out to folks individually as well. But we definitely will have try to get as broad public input as possible and as much staff input as possible.
Thank you.
Okay.
Look forward to working with you guys.
Yeah, us
Great.
too. Thank you so much for having us.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, next we're going to move on. Didn't think we'd be here so early. To Director's Report.
Sure. Just a couple things. At 2 meetings now, Commissioner Paasch, you have brought up asking staff to look at some processes, specifically how we do payroll.
Yes.
So I've talked with that department, and they do have some ideas of some different programs that we can look at that would do payroll, that also incorporate other human resource functions that could save us money, but also make it more efficient, and then get us, especially when you're looking at hiring practices, more applicants, getting the word out to more people so we have a larger pool to choose from for when we're looking for prospective employees. So I have spoke with Charlene, the director of that department, and we're going to be looking at some demos and some different options for the board and the management team to consider to move those
Great.
forward. Charlene, finance director again, has been working on a work program, as you're aware. We have had a couple departments, I think it's about 5 departments that have stepped forward and said they want to take advantage of the people that do come through that work program, so we're going to be doing a little more work on that.
Good.
Insurance that we charge kind of is a hindrance on that, because sometimes by the time the people have to pay the insurance, they're working for very little money, so that's something that may hold us up on that program, but we're trying to work through that to see what our options are with that. Just a note on the Suicide Council that that will be coming up for its 2nd reading at our next meeting. And then, of course, we do have 90 days before that is effective. But we will start advertising for that, provided the board approves that at the second reading. And that's all I have right now.
Okay. Commissioner Boice.
Chair Paasch, thank you. I gotta get my, JJ, you might need to help me here. I can see that.
The mouse, I think, ended up over there at the podium.
Do I have a volunteer? I don't know if Eric, I don't know if Eric can zoom in on the go bag. If the public doesn't know what a go bag is, most do, but if you don't, that's a bag you have in the trunk of your car or somewhere in the outgoing door of your home, so that if we have a natural disaster that you need to evacuate your home, you have a few items. So I'm proud of Jeremy Dumeyer, Emergency Management Coordinator, for developing this bag, which, remind the public, he is putting on almost, what's the term? Single-handedly, the Emergency Management Expo, which will be at the fairgrounds December 12th. So we're very excited about that, and I think it's a good next step to help the county be more prepared and the public better aware. Uh-oh. How do I get out of here?
Ruh-roh. There you go, top corner, way up there. Voice letter. Yeah.
We are working with diligently with the Governor's Fire Recovery, sometimes called Response Council. And this is a letter, I would like to read this letter. It's a little bit long. I want the public to know where we are and why we think that they're... Everybody okay?
No.
Sorry, are you a
Excuse me.
or one?
I think that's just a one, I hope.
So to Matt Donegan, Chairman, this guy's just been a tremendous source and spark plug for the whole process. Dear Mr. Donegan, I send thanks to you and our council members for the support to consider our proposal for a regional fire training center in Southwest Oregon. As you know, this proposal is also strongly supported by our state delegation in Southwest Oregon, including Senators Roblin and Hurd, Representatives McEwen, Brock Smith, and retired Representative Krieger. We appreciate each staff as well as the Governor's awareness of the significant fire risk to our citizens and further the ongoing threat to our fabulous and unique Oregon natural resources. We believe the Rogue River Siskiyou Fire and Emergency Training Center aligns directly with the Governor's executive order. Specifically, response to fires on unprotected, underprotected, and unprotected lands. Wildfire smoke, assisting communities affected by wildfires, prevention, treatment, and cost containment of wildfires. Our county has a story to tell. It relates well to those 4 executive order topics above. Natural disasters impacting Curry County. Over the last 10 years have been hit extremely hard. What follows is not a conclusive list, but highlights the contrasting range and interconnected issues resulting from catastrophic events here. All had the potential for deadly consequences. 2011, the tsunami that really hurt the port of Brookings Harbor. 2015, the giant harbor sinkhole. 2017 and 18, of course, the last 26 months, we lost 350,000 acres. 2019, of course, the major slide. And then finally, the April flood. We don't get floods in April, you know.
Right.
Once in a while, early March, but not April. You know, no one on any of these natural disasters were killed, thank goodness, but we did have some minor injuries on a couple. So I would ask you and the drafters, in the final report to the governor, to please understand how grateful our people are for the work you and our council are doing. We kindly ask you to include this concept to give our county and the citizens of the southwestern corner of Oregon the opportunities to fully participate in the solutions so critical to our future. The Curry fires, I won't read all this, but it's 6 major fires in 32 years, including the Biscuit Fire, largest in Oregon history at 500,000 acres. Obviously, a lot of this has been a reburn. $400 million total for those 6 fires. 2 of them were natural fires, because they're, generally speaking, because they're under the 100,000 acre threshold. The Oregon need, this is where the Rogue River Siskiyou Regional Fire and Emergency Training Center fits. Clearly, the solutions to address the issues above are multifaceted, but this project would help us in Oregon immensely. We simply need to add to our regional toolbox an immediate increased capacity to provide training for a strong new generation of firefighters. Our priority and focus is training firefighters, wildland, and structural at all levels as quickly as possible. The experts and professionals understand that efficient, cost-effective, and convenient access to training is critical. Please consider this reminder. In order to stop the hazardous wildfire smoke problem in Jackson and Josephine counties, we first have to stop the mega fires in Curry County. All of our cities, and especially the suburbs in our road basin counties, both close and not so close, are incredibly vulnerable. The plan specific to this project, we are quite enthused to already have many partners, as well as $140,000 in grants and related pledges to date. We have a wonderful location just 3 miles up Rogue River from Gold Beach, a site with a total of 153 acres, which we can also demonstrate is ideal for this center. With your help and a commitment, this is addressed to the council, remember, of many partners, we can make that case in multiple ways. Phase 2 would be to purchase the property from the governor's wildfire response team, Curry County. Numerous stakeholders and citizens in and around our region are asking this important team for support as we quickly move to that next phase. Please include this letter and full concept and final draft recommendations to the governor, which should be by the end of this month, Mr. Chair. And copy to our key people here in Curry County. And at some point, I need to come before the board, of course, and get the support. But right now, it's moving fairly well. As I speak, the Regional Advisory Committee is also looking at a grant application, Title II, from Economic Development Coordinator Madison and Gold Beach Fire Chief Krieger. Correct me if I'm wrong, Director Schmelzer, I think it's $47,000 that will add. Is that right?
I don't know the exact number.
Might be 60, but it'll add to our 140,000. Here's also the next step. And I think we have a very good chance of getting that grant as well.
Commissioner Boice, you spoke about coming before the board for approval.
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm not assuming that I have that approval, and even though we've had, through the Fire Council, I didn't know if maybe it would be appropriate time after the plan is released to the governor.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that the board did go on record in favor by supporting the resolution.
Oh, that's
so
right.
we do have that resolution which shows board support so far. So I understand, we have to accept grants and do formal approvals further in the process, but I just want to make sure the public is aware that the board does support the project to date by that resolution. So we do have that on file.
Just want to make sure we're following through properly. Thank you very much. Well said. I think, and this is one of my 17 plans was that I came out with in January, late January, my first year, 2017, was to get our own Curry County Forestry Division. So we're making some good progress on that. I spoke earlier, Mr. Chair, on the $15,000 RAC grant that we've applied for. I won't read this letter, but it gives some very similar reasons. There's a $293,000 available to Curry County this cycle. We mentioned our sister counties are very good resources for us. I'll actually be talking to them about that tomorrow at our AOC District 4 meeting here in Gold Beach. List the critical disasters we've had here, because this is not just a fire training center, as you know. It's going to evolve into a fire and emergency training program. And so that's what I delivered to the RAC committee just a little bit ago. Got my fingers crossed. And not to just make this a fire report, because I have a couple other things here, maybe 3 other things. This is from the Oregon Department of Oregon Department of Forestry report that we had from Ron Graham, Deputy Chief of the Fire Protection for the 2019 fire season. He reported that the Association of ONC Counties, BLM 18 counties, last Friday. I would encourage the public to contact our office and look at this information. It is, obviously we had a mild, comparatively, a fire season to the last 2 years. But, oh, there it is, right? Where'd it go? The stats that looking at the averages, compared to last year. And then the 10-year average, I'll just spend a little time here, Mr. Chair. The average acres that we lose in a given year in Oregon is, that the Oregon Department of Forestry is responsible for is 41,000. 2018, 76,000, give or take, just to give you an idea how caused and the number of fires. So that actually didn't go down that much in 2019, but there's a greater awareness, and as you know, ODF gets 90% of their fires out before 10 o'clock the next morning. I think that's all I have on the screen here. Wild Rivers Forest Collaborative, just here's my minutes, but just one side note that you and I are dealing with, or that in different facets, but the ice plants, the rare plants that are at the north end of the Cape Blanco Airport, we're getting a little bit of support from the collaborative in being able to physically move those rare plants when it comes time to extending, and if that's possible, extending the Cape Blanco Airport, presumably on the north side, but we're not ruling out on the opposite end. But that's good news, and I'm very glad for that support there, and I think it can be done and not disrupt the program there. I'm working on law enforcement with the sheriff, law enforcement collective throughout the whole county. You know, it's the concept that 23,000 people, and we have four very good law enforcement programs. But can we afford that? There's a lot of ways to have better coverage, better safety for the officers, and obviously save money. So we had a group that did a study. I think you might be aware, I know Director Schmelzer is, that did a study that it's a large binder, and so that's a great resource, and I hope it's one of those things that was put on the shelf that we can come back and visit. The Portland State University study that looked at the two
911.
Yeah, the two 911 dispatch centers. I have a big concern, and I think you're aware of this as well. May not go anywhere, and we spent a total of $35,000 on that. So it's going to be a challenge for us to get on board with the Brookings City Council and vice versa to see if this can be revived and recovered in some fashion. So I having looked a little bit at the study, I see no reason why that wouldn't be a logical step in saving money for this county. And it's gonna be a responsibility we're gonna have to pursue. You know, the Sudden Oak Death Task Force is continually an ongoing issue and also responsibility. So I have nothing to report today other than last week we were at Pistol River and that went very well. And then the Coos Curry Housing Task Force what day was that? Monday? Anyway, Summer Madison gave a very good report of the sequence that we've been able to accomplish the last 2.5 years, and very well done. And I see that group coming together a little bit towards our goal of hopefully finding funding outside the general fund for a housing coordinator. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your patience.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gold?
I've got a few things. I went to a jail tour. Very, very loud and noisy. But anyway, I had a good talk with Joel, who is in charge of the jail, and he is working with Coos County. They are coming up with a fee that is going to go on everybody's electric bill to help with the sheriff's department up there. And I think once that's set up, I talked about this earlier and was told that the board's never going to okay that. That's the electric board. But apparently it's almost a done deal. And so once that precedent is set, I think we could, as a county, possibly do something like that on everybody's electric bill so it doesn't hit the property owners solely. I was also able to go to the 50th anniversary of the Good Samaritan Hospital. It was a lovely celebration, and unfortunately both my parents had to be there at one time, so I was happy to be there and see some of the same nurses that took care of them. I'm continuing with the SWOC seminars and so forth. They're going along nicely. I've also set up meetings with the elementary principals in the county so that they can collaborate and talk about what's working for them and how we can make our schools more successful. And the elementary schools, we're going to be principals, I'm going to be meeting with them. So that's going to be October 22nd and 29th that I'll be doing those meetings with them in kind of a non-confrontational, non-threatening way. So superintendents are not invited, so they can talk freely. That's it.
I don't have very much. I just want to bring back to this board to remind you. I wrote a letter to that included the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as ODF&W, the governing bodies of Jackson County, including their county council, and the governing body of Josephine County and their county council, to a meeting on October 31st. I'm inviting this board to it as well, and hopeful that all of you will attend. It is about the Rogue River issues that we face with the Army Corps of Engineers. I'll just briefly read the letter to you. I would like to invite you to attend a joint meeting of the Curry County Board of Commissioners and the Josephine Board of Commissioners to discuss the Rogue River fisheries, more particularly the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers management objectives. The discussion would be in light of the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Management objectives outlined in the Rogue River Spring Chinook Conservation Plan of 2007 as updated in 2019, and as informed by the historical context of the Flood Control Act of 1962 and the 1972 Lost Creek Project EIS and the supporting documents. The meeting is scheduled to take place in Josephine County Commissioner's offices at 500 Northwest 6th Street in Grants Pass, Oregon. The meeting is scheduled for October 31st, 2019, beginning at 10 a.m., and lunch will be provided, and it will probably go till about 2 p.m. Invited attendees are the Corps of Engineers and the representatives, as well as corresponding representatives from ODF&W, as a joint meeting of two local governing bodies, and we are including Jackson as well. If they come, then they would be the third governing body, and the meeting would be subject to the requirements of the Oregon Public Meetings laws, so members of the public are welcome. We on the Rogue River look forward to sitting down to a real discussion on what we view are the shortcomings of the Lost Creek Lake project and the Spring Chinook fisheries. With kindest regards, I remain. So this is something that we are going to do on the 31st. I think it was already put out to the board on this. And if it hasn't been, it was going to go out today. But we are going to be doing this as a group. All of us sit together and start to look at all the work that Steve Byerlin and Counsel Huttl have done on this already, and the years and years of research that Mr. Byerlin has done on the Rogue River, the fisheries, the spawning grounds, the gravel that we all see at the mouth of our river now, and how we're going to deal with this in coming years, and the impact on the economic development and loss of revenue resources to businesses, to the guides, to the whole region of the Rogue River Basin. So we look forward to having that meeting. I hope it's productive. I hope everyone shows up as they have promised they would. Mr. Byerlin has had some extremely positive conversations with ODF&W, and as well as a lot of the fishing guide organizations throughout the state of Oregon, throughout the northwest of this country, a lot of who he's been associated with for 45 years, and he has had no negative response to any of the information that he's provided to them. They've all wanted to join and get on board with this. So I will be hopeful that our entire board, as well as Jackson and Josephine County, shows up for this. I'm actually probably guessing we'll have a few news channels there as well on this. So it is a large issue for the Rogue. Commissioner Boice?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We're going to have our AOC District 4 meeting on Friday, and I understand all three commissioners will be there, which I think is very good to hear. I'm vice chair of that, and I would like to ask Chair Morgan from Josephine County if she will call on you, if you're okay with that, to give that report there.
Sure.
Bob Strasser will be there, commissioner from Jackson County. I don't think the other two Jackson County commissioners will be, but I know you've got acquainted with them too. And I know Strasser well enough that I can maybe nudge him a little bit, because I assume you have not heard from Jackson County.
I've talked to Bob about this exactly
Yeah, okay.
several times.
Good.
So.
And so you anticipate that they would come to Josephine County on the 31st?
I
hopeful?
anticipate that they will come. I'm hopeful that they will come, and they will all come united. So
Wonderful. Okay, the other question I have, this is not open to the public then?
it is open to the public.
Because so this is not the meeting that I've discussed with Mr. Byerlin on bringing in the sport fishing and because there could be a lot of people, and I don't know if we should have a secondary meeting. Originally, I talked to him about having a Gold Beach and a Grants Pass meeting, and so, man, the place could be packed, even though it's fishing season, 10 o'clock in the morning.
I'm hopeful that it is. We want to have our public informed on what we're doing. This
Okay,
is
but
a
you
great
feel like
way.
this is in place of a public meeting?
No, this was, I'm not sure what you spoke to Mr. Byerlin about. Is this the same meeting that we've all spoken about jointly?
I don't know what Court Boice has spoken to Steve Byerlin about, but this meeting is proposed to be a public meeting. If I could make a comparison, Jackson County commissioners invited the Army Corps and the ODF&W to one of their public meetings for a presentation of their management objectives and stuff. And it's going to be going over some of that in light of the information that Steve Byerlin and myself have uncovered or revealed and divulged since that time. So we're going to present them. It's a follow-up essentially to that meeting. So it'll be a public meeting, public discussion.
So you and Mr. Byerlin are going to that meeting?
All of us are.
The one in Josephine County that
We're asking the
Commissioner
entire
Paasch
board to
is
go.
Sorry, I
about.
thought this was something you were talking about separately with Jackson County.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Nope.
No,
Yep.
this is the same meeting. We're asking all three boards, along with their councils, and we are expecting the Army Corps of Engineers, ODF&W, and probably some of the fishing guide organizations throughout the Northwest. And we are hopeful to be able to ask the Corps of Engineers some questions and get answers from them on some of these topics that we're going to bring up. So it will be an interactive meeting with all of our organizations. And the public will be, I don't know, as we are going to have a public comment section in there, because it
There's my
would
point right
probably
there.
be an extremely extensive one, but we do want to at least invite the public to the meeting so that they have an opportunity to learn what's happening in the Rogue Basin.
If I may?
Sure.
I'm concerned that might be a mistake because you get, and maybe not, and I don't know, inside the Josephine County Courthouse, there's a room that big.
I think we have to, because we're going to have three boards and all the commissioners be there. We have to follow the public meeting laws because of that.
Okay, and I certainly accept that. I just would be just a little warning that you possibly could have 50 people want to speak.
I
and
think
you
we
need to
might
set
have
up-
500 people there. And I'm sure they're planning for that.
So if
Because at the last meeting, there was already two news organizations there, so I'm sure those will be there at a minimum as well.
Right, and if I could, a public meeting is not always a public hearing. So the public has a right under the public meeting law to attend a public meeting, but there's not a right necessarily to speak at a public meeting. It's only with permission.
I think
So
you've had to explain that to me about
Yep.
4 times.
That's okay, but it would
Thank
be
you.
the will of
Sorry I didn't offer it.
ultimately the bodies there. But I think in the case if there's too many, I think the idea would be for management reasons not to allow public comments. They could submit them in writing, but I think that's a detail we can arrive at jointly among the different bodies.
Very good.
Josephine has a pretty good sized meeting room.
In the courthouse?
It's next door. It's actually in a
Okay.
building called the Ann Basker, and they can get quite a few people in there. We've had them for marijuana hearings, and it gets pretty full.
So those are my comments.
Yeah. So I want to ask you publicly, you would be comfortable giving a report Friday to the?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
So at this time, that's the end of our public meeting. We are going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we are going to enter into executive session under ORS 1926602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. ORS 1926602H, to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. And 192.6602D, and that one was?
To confer with designated representatives of labor negotiations.
Okay. So we are in recess. We will reconvene after executive session. Mr. Hall, thank you for bringing the newspaper.
And you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it. If you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
One of the things I really appreciate about our entire region is that we embrace who we are, and I think that's what unifies us. Once the timber and fishing industries collapsed, it took us a long time to get back on our feet. People didn't quite grasp the idea that once these jobs left, they weren't going to get other family wage jobs, and it crippled us.
Things were getting really dire. So we just saw that this was an opportunity to maybe look at that public land a little differently and how it could bring more dollars into our region.
The Wild Rivers Coast is so unique because there are more wild and scenic rivers here than anywhere else in the lower 48 states. The scenic beauty is just amazing. There's so many different places to go, from the national forest down to the protected ocean, and it's just a really special place.
I guess I didn't really know how special it was, though, until I moved away to Portland and came back and saw all the potential here.
We're uncrowded, we're unspoiled, and we're a little difficult to get to, but my God, once you come here, you fall in love.
We just thought if we could pull people to come into this Wild Rivers Coast and stay longer and explore a little farther into our backcountry, there was a lot of opportunities for them to experience.
I think our whole future is at stake here. This area is ready to go. We just need to give it a little kick in the butt.
I'm gonna be honest, when the Rural Tourism Studio came here, I was skeptical because I didn't see far enough ahead that we actually could collaborate regionally, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It's been amazing.
The Rural Tourism Studios was the first time we were able to come together as a region to talk about the future of our economy.
If we can have a strong tourism economy in this area, it's going to benefit the whole community.
We have to rely on ourselves, and I think through this program, it's sort of opened our eyes to what we could do when we work together. Community leaders really focused on 3 areas: outdoor recreation, food and agricultural tourism, and really building community relationships.
In our area, a lot of the food that's grown all gets shipped away. And so now we're realizing that we can capture some of that local food that's grown here. The Eat Fresh and Local Action Team has hosted a series of networking events bringing together the area growers with the area vendors so that we could have more local food available to the visitors to our area. And now we're seeing more local food in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, and we have a new local food co-op.
We created a farm trail from Bandon to Port Orford. We did 9 U-pick farms, and it just gained traction, and people loved it.
Langlois is less than 500 people. It's very small. So we have to bring in tourists. And being on the farm trail, even though it's just beginning, has really helped do that. We really want to make it a destination for anybody. My mom and I began Dragonfly Farm just 3 years ago. When I found out that I could grow a seed and turn that into food, it was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you do this? I just quit my day job and I just signed the paper to be an official co-owner of the farm. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and grow with the community.
Out of the Outdoor Recreation Action Team, we came up with a series of maps that show where the best places to go recreate are. We know where we're going to send people now, and we got a great map that shows all the best places to go see.
For us to get a mapping project done to this extent is pretty impressive. We're patting ourselves on the back. I don't know if anybody else is, but we're doing it.
From that, we decided that there was some places that needed help, so we came up with a mountain bike plan, and we also worked on designating a state scenic bikeway. The Outdoor Recreation Action Team was also looking at how we can make scuba diving better in this area. So we came up with the idea for a scuba fill station. So now people that want to come and dive in this area, they can dive for multiple days because they can get their tanks filled up again. When I started the Rural Tourism Studio, my business, South Coast Tours, was really small. And now we've grown to about 5 or 6 guides, and we're doing tours all over from Brookings all the way up to Coos Bay.
Overall, tourism is on the rise here. We've had a bang-up last 2 years, and it's like a breath of fresh air down here.
My hope for the area is that we still keep that sense of place.
Loving a place to death is a big concern that I have, and it's a balance. We're going to promote tourism, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. One of the biggest reasons that this area has been so successful since the tourism studio is the people that are involved. We have a lot of great, motivated, smart people who understand the need to promote tourism in the right way, and it's really all about the people.
When you live in a rural community like we do, from Bandon down to Brookings, and you're strapped for cash, relationships are crucial.
As a community, I think you need to come together and find out what your mission and goals are collectively. Then you can work into smaller groups, knowing that you have the backing of the whole community behind you.
As long as everybody's just super excited about it and passionate about what they're doing and they can work together, then anything's possible.
Own what you have and don't try to be something that you're not. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take a long time. So roll up your sleeves and just dig in with an open mind.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry, boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101, guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is. And what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches, an oceanfront promenade, and a downtown core packed with restaurants, shops, and even a beach-type arcade. Cannon Beach is home to one of Oregon's most photographed natural wonders, Haystack Rock. Get your shots from the beach, or take a short drive up to Ecola State Park and look down on this 235-foot work of art. The picturesque small town is filled with art galleries, shops, and cafes. Ready for more? 10 miles to the south, this is the view from Cape Falcon. You're 700 feet above the Pacific. Here, the Pacific Coast Byway has been carved out of Neahkahnie Mountain and held in place by stone walls built in the 1930s by craftsmen in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Upon descending the mountain, the highway drifts inward around Tillamook Bay to Tillamook, the unofficial dairy capital of Oregon. The verdant valley of dairy farms in this area produces 25 million gallons of milk annually. Much of that is processed into natural cheddar cheese. And near more than 800 miles of navigable waters, Tillamook is a crossroads for North Coast recreation. From here, you owe it to yourself to veer off Highway 101 to explore the Three Capes Scenic Loop. This drive places you right at the beach, beginning with Cape Mears, home to the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. 9 lighthouses stand sentinel along Oregon's coastline. They're monuments to our maritime heritage, towering links to the past, and as much a part of the rugged Oregon coastal landscape as any offshore monolith. The Cape Mears Lighthouse was first illuminated in 1890. Oregon's oldest lighthouse is at Cape Blanco, the westernmost point in the state. It was commissioned in 1870 to aid shipping generated by gold mining and the lumber industry. The 93-foot-high Yaquina Head Lighthouse is the tallest in Oregon. Today, its automated light continues to aid navigation at the entrance to Yaquina Bay. Many of the lighthouses are open to the public. Most happen to be excellent places to view nesting seabirds and offshore sea life. Tide pools, those rocky areas between high and low tides, support unique and diverse plants and animals. Vast amounts of colorful, otherworldly creatures wait to be discovered. But walk cautiously. These organisms are tough enough to withstand the pounding surf, but are utterly vulnerable to human activity. Wildlife and sea life abound on the coast.
There are 6 national wildlife refuges along the Oregon coast. The Pacific Coast Scenic Byway bisects these refuges or goes alongside them. It provides you the opportunity to see a wide variety of abundant wildlife, including seabirds, seals and sea lions, deer and elk, and many other wildlife.
Cape Kiwanda lies at the southern end of the Three Capes Scenic Loop, near the town of Pacific City. Here you'll find a second haystack rock on the byway. Hike up the dune to marvel at stunning views of sandstone formations as they turn yellow, gold, or even red in the changing sunlight. If your timing is right, you'll spot 1 or 2 of the dory fleet sprint onto the beach after a day of fishing. How's this for a dinner setting? Restaurants along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway accommodate just about any taste. Many serve an ocean view with every meal. Up and down the coast, you'll find seafood, of course, but don't limit yourself just because you're by the water. The Central Coast begins around Lincoln City, which is one of the larger communities on the byway. It has a reputation for being windy and was recognized by Kite Lines magazine as the best place to fly a kite in North America. It was incorporated from several small towns and as a result offers a sandy beach that is 7.5 miles long. A number of small state parks lie nestled along the ocean between Lincoln City and Newport. Stop, get out of your car, and take in the commanding views that are there, right next to your all-American road. Depot Bay boasts the world's smallest navigable harbor, 6 square acres in all. A seawall runs the length of the downtown, so everywhere you go, you're rewarded with a dramatic view of the Pacific. It's considered Oregon's whale-watching capital, with thousands making their way past Oregon each fall and spring. Fishing and whale-watching excursions regularly set sail from this little harbor. Leaving Depot Bay, you'll soon find yourself at Cape Foulweather, a basalt outcropping that looms 500 feet above the water. It was here, in 1778, British Captain James Cook first sighted the mainland of North America on the Pacific coast. A fierce storm that almost put an end to his expedition earned this rugged stretch of coastline its name. Coastal weather can change by the hour. You will find a lot of wet days, but rain can become blue sky with white clouds in an afternoon. Mist kissing the headlands burns away, or storms can last for days. Some people come for those storms. Whether you find sunbursts of happiness or cloud cover like a quilt, there's always a reason to come back. Like Lincoln City, Newport is one of the larger towns on the byway. The historic bayfront on the north side of Yaquina Bay hosts one of Oregon's largest commercial fishing fleets. It has a busy, genuine working waterfront feel, with fish plants and boats coming and going from as far away as Alaska. On the south side of the bay is the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Share waters beneath the ocean with sharks and rays. And don't miss the sea otters at mealtime.
Now, all 4 of our otters were rescued otters. They were found out in the wild.
For the next 50 miles, your trip along Highway 101 hugs the coast. Many more state parks offer opportunities to stop and take in outstanding vistas, crashing waves, and offshore rock formations. 2 small towns of note are Waldport and Yachats. Waldport sits on Alsea Bay, where fishing, clamming, and crabbing are popular. The 40-mile stretch south of Waldport marks steep headlands, jagged volcanic outcrops, and jaw-dropping scenery, the rugged edge of the Oregon coast. Yachats is a quiet, unhurried artist town just a couple of miles north of Cape Perpetua. Drive to the top of this bluff, and you'll be 800 feet above the water. On a clear day, you can see 70 miles of Oregon coastline. Drive past Heceta Head Lighthouse to the Sea Lion Caves. A quick elevator ride 200 feet down puts you in America's largest sea cave, the year-round home of wild stellar sea lions. Rugged cliffs give way to graceful beaches as you approach Florence. In the spring, be on the lookout for wild rhododendrons along the roadsides. Similar to Newport, you'll find an historic Old Town commercial district along the Siuslaw River. Florence is the gateway to the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, a 47-mile sandbox of wind-sculpted sand dunes towering 500 feet above sea level. These are the largest expanse of coastal sand dunes in North America. Reedsport is at the center of the Oregon Dunes. But you can do more than ride a dune buggy or motorcycle. A short 3 miles east of town on Highway 38, more than 100 Roosevelt elk reside at the Dean Creek Elk Viewing Area. Early mornings or just before dusk are the best times to photograph the herd. Paying homage to Oregon's timber heritage, Reedsport hosts an annual Chainsaw Sculpting Championship, a time to watch three-dimensional artwork come to life right before your eyes. Mountains of sand continue at Winchester Bay. You'll also find an active marina here. It's a great place to try your hand at crabbing or take a charter for salmon or bottom fishing. The dunes end and you enter the coast's largest urban area at Coos Bay. It has the deepest natural harbor between Seattle and San Francisco. Foreign vessels sail under the massive McCullough Bridge. You may have noticed, dotted along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are many beautiful and iconic bridges. The Megler Bridge in Astoria, Yaquina Bay Bridge in Newport, Halsey Bay Bridge in Waldport, Siuslaw River Bridge in Florence, and the magnificent McCullough Bridge in Coos Bay are works of art in their own right. Charleston is slightly off the byway at the mouth of the bay. It was once an old waterfront fishing village and has become a commercial and sport fishing center. From here, the Charleston to Bandon tour route offers another side trip off the byway. It's a wonderful way to explore a variety of natural Pacific Coast beauty in a number of settings: beaches, vistas, gardens, and more. Giant sea stacks, a tiny lighthouse, and an old town await you in Bandon. Do you like to golf? This remote area on the Oregon coast has not one, but 3 of the most stunning and challenging golf courses in the world. As you drive south of town, look for brilliant red bogs in the fall. You're passing through the cranberry capital of Oregon. After a trek through forests and farmlands, you'll reach Port Orford. The wild coast has begun. You're in the most westerly city in the continental United States, and you've reached some of the most awesome scenery on the byway. Here you can watch a fishing fleet launched by crane in one of only 6 dolly ports in the world. Port Orford covers less than 2 square miles. It's similar to many communities that call this all-American road home. Small in size, still with a lot to offer. Like Manzanita, with a vibrant business district and beautiful setting at the base of Neahkahnie Mountain. You can board a fishing charter out of Garibaldi, swim in freshwater lakes near Dune City, catch world-class windsurfing at Pistol River. There is little development from Port Orford to Gold Beach, outlet for the renowned Rogue River. Feel like going for a ride? Jet boat excursions run from May into October up this wild and scenic river. Or maybe a midday walk on an uncrowded beach is more your speed. The last dozen miles of the Pacific Coast Byway leading into Brookings save some of the best for last. Treat yourself to frequent stops along the Samuel H. Boardman Scenic Corridor. Short hikes reward you with the best views in this shining stretch of coastline. Walk, relax, and be amazed along the coves in the crashing surf. The world's northernmost redwood grove is 8 miles from the mouth of the Chetco River in Brookings. So, you've toured nature's finest art museum. You've dined elegantly, hung out with sea lions, unwound like you wish you could every day. What else is there to do? Step back in history near Astoria. Ride a horse along the waves near Florence. Pet a baby tiger near Bandon. Hike a trail, sample gourmet cheese, eat fresh-caught crab, watch a sunset.
When you come to the Oregon coast and walk on the beaches or go to the headlands and go to the small coastal towns, you really can commune with nature, and you don't have huge numbers of people, but you're also able to take in one of America's last great unspoiled seascapes.
So what draws you to the Oregon coast? What favorite places lure you back again and again? Each visit is different. The ocean, the sky, the light, and the experience always continue to amaze. Shouldn't you be there?
Wildfire, as everyone knows, has emerged as one of the big major issues affecting Oregon and, for that matter, all western states. A real actionable response that's including how do we fight fire, actively managing our forests so that we don't have the fuels out there, and how are we going to protect communities from smoke exposures. The Council is really set up to have a comprehensive strategy that's based on action and based on protecting our communities.
The primary focus we as a board have come through with is that in researching the policies for fire management, yes, prescribed fire has its place on the landscape, but not during fire season. We, as a county, passed a proclamation that says once the state fire marshal declares fire season, it'll be nothing but full suppression, and recently took a resolution to the National Association of Counties, essentially says that they support coordination between agencies and local governments for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens regarding fire. Prescribed fire, fire season, anything that affects our citizens.
This is Lily Morgan from Josephine County, and we are at the Rogue Leadership Forum today, looking at the best possible partnerships that we can come up with to fight the fire issues and the smoke issues that we're facing in Southwest Oregon. So looking forward to coming up with solutions and the partnerships to get the job done so we don't face what we have the last few years with catastrophic fires and smoke that invades our communities for months to come. So this is a good opportunity, and we hope to be successful in the outcome.
Seeing so many people come together has really been exciting for me because there's a lot of expertise, there's a lot of resources, and as we attempt to do a shared stewardship approach to keeping people safe, it's really important that we get together. So my name is Merv George Jr., and I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. The first things is making sure to get fires out if they're threatening life and property. The second thing that I'm going to focus in on is when it's safe to do so, to put some fire on the landscape when it's cooler and not during fire season, to reduce these same fuels that are giving us so much fits during the fire season.
Bob Horton, I'm the Fire Chief of Jackson County Fire District 3 in Southern Oregon. The challenges that are facing us in terms of the mega fires and the wildfires that we've been experiencing out in this valley, particularly in the last couple of years, but across the state and across the region, incredibly concerning to us in the fire community, those in our communities in general, our constituents and our patrons are extremely concerned as they ought to be. And really the takeaway from the work that's being done now is this is an extraordinary collaboration of dozens on dozens of interested stakeholder groups who are coming together with a common purpose. It's really an inspiring showing of humanity to not only be able to provide for a greater quality of life for our people, but to be strong stewards of our land so that our future for us and generations to come is incredibly bright.
Very pressing issue. It's bearing down on us. Fire season is approaching, and I am really interested in preventing my home and other homes in my community from being impacted by wildfire, specifically from being burnt down. That's my main reason for being involved.
Quite a collaboration of folks. We're here looking for practical solutions to help us unravel some of the issues surrounding wildfires today here in the state of Oregon. And my focus really is on planning for large wildfire events in advance of their occurrence. That way, when they do occur, we can respond more appropriately to those situations.
Well, I just think it's grand if all of the people all over the state have come together today to be concerned about water. It just warms my heart because I know that they really will leave here today feeling more impressed about the water because I have told them that we're all born in water. We cannot live without it. It's our job to take care of it, stop the garbage in the rivers and streams and oceans because there's life in that water and it's our job to keep it clean for them. Because we cannot live on this planet without the animal kingdom. I was in Ohio at the Ohio River with Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist who had proven water could heal. He and I stood on the riverbank and blessed the Ohio River that they had us come to do. And I prayed that God has still kept the river good for them over there. We were taught when we were little that prayer works. You too will remember your prayers because they work. It has nothing to do with religion or church.
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
Roadway departure fatalities are a serious and often preventable problem in the United States. The Federal Highway Administration reports that 54% of all highway fatalities are caused by drivers leaving their lane of travel. The Oregon Department of Transportation is taking a proactive approach to reduce this kind of tragedy by implementing a centerline and shoulder rumble strip program.
Rumble strips are one of the most low-cost, cost-effective countermeasures that we can apply across the system.
Rumble strips are grooved patterns on the roadway that make a rumbling sound and a physical vibration, immediately warning inattentive drivers that they're leaving their driving lane. Rumble strips allow drivers to self-correct and avoid an accident.
About 67% of fatal crashes in Oregon are road departure crashes, which are a vehicle can leave the lane to the right and hit a ditch or a rock or a tree, something like that, or cross over the center line to the left and get in a head-on collision or a sideswipe meeting type crash.
Over an 8-year period, ODOT engineers studied segments of 16 different highways and concluded that rumble strips are highly effective at reducing lane departures.
We did a before and after crash analysis to find that we have reduced head-on fatalities by 40% with the installation of centerline rumble strips.
We've been trying to find a way to deal with a problem that seems to be increasing over the last 10 or 15 years with our drivers, and that's distracted driving. And there's a lot of things that cause distracted driving. All these distractions are things that make people take their attention away from where it should be.
Comparisons between other available safety features like guardrail and concrete barriers show that shoulder and centerline rumble strips are the most cost-effective safety treatment available.
We're finding that those are very effective in trying to make sure that when you do make that mistake, it's not the last mistake you make. They help bring your attention back to the driving task and bring you back to where you should be, focusing on being in the middle of your lane and being safe.
ODOT makes a conscious effort to use a bike-friendly rumble strip design where possible and installs 12-foot bike gaps every 48 feet of rumble strip. ODOT understands that rumble strips create a noise that can be disruptive for people who live near rural highways, and we're trying to address these concerns with different approaches.
For the noise, we're looking at some new designs. We're hoping that the new design rumble strip will be just as effective at saving people from making an error and much quieter, on the order of 10 times as quiet. And we are actually going to be installing our first full set of these style of rumble strips along 205 this summer.
So we recognize that noise is a concern, but one of the things I like to tell people is whenever you hear the sound of a rumble strip, it could be the sound of the life being saved of one of your loved ones.
Rumble strips are proven to save lives. The Oregon Department of Transportation is taking the lead in implementing the sound of safety.
Well, we're here with Commissioner Colleen Roberts.
for the monthly meeting of the ONC board, which Colleen sits on. Colleen, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your mission and what you guys discuss at these monthly meetings?
Sure. Well, our ONC board is of the 18 counties in Oregon that have the ONC lands on their BLM federal lands. And we discuss everything about these lands. The ONC Act of 1937 is our primary focus, how the decisions that these lands get managed, do they match up with the congressional mandate of the ONC Act, and how we can better educate and help administer the care of these lands for the health and safety and welfare of the citizens that we represent.
I would imagine you discuss things like how many board feet can be taken out of the forest in different areas. Are these things that come up each month?
Yes, well, harvest timber management is a big part of our conversation, as is lately the fire issues.
We're here today with Commissioner Dan DeYoung of Josephine County. Dan, you have an important role on the ONC Lands Board, and we're here in beautiful Gold Beach, Oregon, discussing the monthly matters of ONC. What was your main focus at this meeting?
Today we had a really good sit down with two representatives from the BLM. And we work with BLM because actually the ONC lands are on BLM lands, and that's our concern. Mainly the ONC Board of Directors, which is a membership from all 18 counties. We always meet, I think it's bi-monthly, and then we have an annual meeting. And it's basically to discuss what the sign says, forest health, jobs, and county services. That the money coming from the sale of timber on ONC lands goes through the federal government. They take their share out of it and then return it back to the counties to be used for basically jobs, county services. A lot of county services, such as law enforcement, schools. There's just an awful lot of things that these individual counties can use the money for. But it's from the sale of timber on the ONC lands. ONC lands goes way back to 1937 with the ONC 1937 ONC Congressional Act and the ONC Act of 1937. We're just trying to get back to the actual verbiage and the language that's in that act. It's surprising to us how we can ignore a congressional act. That remains to be answered by the federal government, but that's what we want to get back to.
Hi there, I'm Tillamook County Commissioner Dave Yamamoto. I'm a member of the ONC board and also the chair of the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties. And in Tillamook County, it's very important that we consider natural resource-based economies. So in Tillamook County, we have lots of dairy. I'm sure you're familiar with Tillamook Creamery, but also lots of state and federal timberlands. When it comes to federal timberlands in particular, everyone thinks that we're looking at timber revenue. And that's very important, but one side of the coin that people don't consider are the family wage jobs that come with all timber. It's not just the timber receipts that we get. These are family wage jobs, these are fully benefited jobs, whereas on the tourism side, the income is about a third of what we would consider a family wage job, and there are also no benefits with those. So timber receipts are very important, but it's the family wage jobs that they create at the same time, which are very important to counties like Tillamook.
Perfect. Keeping it real for families in Tillamook County.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Yamamoto.
Thank you very much.
All right. We are here with County Commissioner Bob Main from Coos County, Oregon. And we've had the monthly meeting of ONC lands here. And Mr. Main, Commissioner Main, I should say, tell us what your role is, Bob, on the ONC Lands Board.
I'm the Vice President of the ONC Association of Oregon Counties.
Okay.
Consists of 18 ONC counties, Western Oregon counties.
Okay.
And we make sure that the counties receive their payments from those ONC lands that Congress designated for the sole purpose of those 18 ONC counties. For no other reason, Congress decided that when they took back the lands and took them off the tax roll, that the county should benefit from the harvest of those lands. Without that, the tax rates, like in my county, would be 2 to 3 times higher.
Oh, okay. So you help keep the tax rates down in your county by utilizing the full function of this congressional act.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are here with Oregon Curry County Commissioner Boice. Thank you so much for taking a moment to speak with us.
Well, thank you. With the natural resource base that this state has, I've spent or spending better than half of my time as a county commissioner on those issues: fire management, public lands management, certainly natural resources, all of those. And so I'm often reminded that 250 years ago, the generations that came before us when they got here to Oregon, include Northern California, they found the greatest forest in all of North America, that produce the greatest watersheds, that produce the most pristine rivers, that give us the most, the highest quality of salmon and steelhead runs, arguably on the planet.
I love walking. It's what I do. So who better to share some tips to help keep your walk safe? Wait for the signal. Take in the sights and smells till you get the go-ahead to cross. Use intersections to cross, but when you can't, remember your training. Always look left, right, left. Show you want to cross and wait for all lanes of traffic to stop. And make eye contact so you know the driver sees you. Hi there. Good human. You get a treat when we get home.
How many letters?
5 letters.
Just think about, what am I doing right now?
Smile. Smile?
Uh-huh.
This is so easy.
Sign that doesn't have a rider on it, so we take our first test at this posted speed limit of 35
Bob
miles
Weeks
per
and
hour.
Harley Bills are seeing more than their share of curvy roads these days. Their job is to drive every stretch of highway in Region 1 several times. All this driving back and forth.
That way we can get it all the way up. All right, sounds good. Okay.
The old limits were set back in the 1930s and 40s and were changed very little until just recently. So now our limits are taking into account newer vehicles, a little bit more aggressive driving style, and so those limits are going up.
And going up in a big way. This is Eric Leeming, a traffic devices engineer with ODOT. He's driving an ordinary car with some extraordinary tech on board, a GPS device that records data as he maneuvers every curve in the road. Back at his office, Eric can upload the data recorded in the car, and special software determines exactly the right speed for every curve, every time. Most speeds will increase by 5 to 10 miles per hour. But in some special cases, it's much higher.
The state has a deadline of 2019 from the Federal Highway Administration, but with 8,000 miles of roads to investigate and potentially thousands of signs to change, they're not wasting any time. They're getting out there right now.
Then we're going to the W113.
About 800 signs along this section. That's a lot of signs.
It's a lot of signs.
If it's a 35-mile-an-hour corner, you should be taking it at 35 miles an hour.
America's 3,069 county governments provide fundamental services for building healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. We are an intergovernmental partner, implementing federal and state policies at the local level, often under strict rules and funding constraints. County governments, through the National Association of Counties, engage federal policymakers on a range of issues like transportation, infrastructure, healthcare, public safety, and public lands management. All of these issues are vital to our nation's quality of life and our long-term prosperity. Decisions made by the White House, Congress, and federal courts have a major cascading impact on our ability to lead our communities and pursue a better future. Let's look at why federal policies matter to county government and why county government matters to America. Counties provide vital services that keep our communities thriving and secure. We own and maintain 45% of roads and 4 out of 10 bridges. We own more than a third of the airports and hundreds of hospitals and thousands of courthouses, jails, 911 call centers, and libraries. We play a critical role during emergencies like hurricanes, floods, and snowstorms. What if you called 911 and no one answered? What if you couldn't reach your medical facility because roads and bridges were in disrepair or never built? County governments are an indispensable part of the infrastructure and services that keep residents safe and connected. But with very limited revenue options under most state constitutions and laws, counties must make every penny count in order to fulfill federal and state mandates and required responsibilities. Nothing is more basic in our society than essential public facilities like schools, hospitals, airports, jails, bridges, and other infrastructure. Yet proposals have surfaced to eliminate or scale back tax-exempt municipal bonds. For over a century, municipal bonds have been the lifeblood for our nation's public infrastructure, helping finance more than $3.7 trillion in essential projects. If tax-exempt municipal bonds were eliminated or scaled back, county governments and our residents would face billions in new costs when financing vital facilities. Additionally, counties rely on MAP 21 and the Federal Highway Trust Fund to complement local transportation financing resources. With growing demands and mounting costs, we need a reliable federal partner to invest with us in our nation's economic growth and competitiveness. We need a long-term legislative solution with increased funding to ensure continued success in operating our nation's transportation system. Counties face further revenue losses each year because billions of dollars in e-commerce sales tax revenue isn't collected. The Marketplace Fairness Act would enable states and localities to collect existing, already owed taxes. It would also level the playing field between many internet retailers who don't collect sales taxes and Main Street businesses that do. County governments provide support services to federal public lands, touching 700 million annual visitors. We lead search and rescue operations, fight fires, protect the public's health, and maintain roads. Federal lands cover nearly 1/3 of the U.S. and impact 69% of counties. Because federal land is exempt from local property taxes, counties depend on PILT, the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program, to provide essential services. The Secure Rural Schools program provides assistance to rural counties and school districts affected by the decline in revenue from timber harvests on federal land. Decisions to cut or delay funding both programs undermine our ability to provide services and maintain public lands. Our intergovernmental partnerships don't end with legislation because counties also implement and comply with federal and state regulations. When considering environmental protections, we know our communities and care deeply about the environment. We need a stronger voice in shaping common sense regulations that protect communities while also promoting economic growth. This is why NACO secured significant improvements to FEMA's flood insurance program and is pushing back on the waters of the U.S. proposed rule. Our message: federal policies matter to county government, and county government matters to America. Every level of government must work together to shape policies that improve the quality of life for all Americans. Whether it's building and maintaining infrastructure, providing essential services, or fostering economic growth, counties are on the front line serving their citizens. NACO stands ready to work with the administration and Congress to make our nation's communities healthier, safer, and more vibrant places to live and work.
Did you see Allison at lunch today? I'm gonna text her. I'm gonna text Allison. Hey, hold up, Matt's calling me. Matt's calling me. Hey, we got the food and we're on our way right now. Hey, who's coming, bro? You're the one who needs help.
Counties matter. Counties serve nearly every American every day. Urban, suburban, and rural, counties work with states, the federal government, and other public and private partners to keep our communities healthy, vibrant, and safe. Whether you're commuting to work or shipping goods around the globe, counties matter. Counties own and maintain 45% of the nation's roads and 4 out of 10 bridges. And we're involved in nearly a third of public airports and transit systems. Counties matter when Americans need us the most. Counties matter because we support smart, fair, and effective criminal justice systems. We help fund police and sheriff's departments. We own and operate local jails, 911 call centers, and mental health facilities. Counties create healthy communities. We invest more than $80 billion in hospitals and medical services each year. Counties matter because we invest in the lives of residents of all ages.
All right, we are back in session. It is 12:19, and the board and county employees are to proceed as instructed from the executive session. With nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.